And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, yeah.
Attention, roll call. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. We all had a late night last night, so we're a little slow to start off. Forgive us. We got to wait for the caffeine to kick in. But yeah, very interesting times. We spoke a little bit about it on Wednesday. We're going to get into it a lot more with the corruption scandal breaking out of the NYPD and from former top Adams officials. You know, a lot of things have broken. Had a lot of interesting conversations yesterday. Met with a lot of interesting people. Was in Manhattan all day yesterday. So Marlon, what's up, brother? How you feeling this morning? Oh, and just an update on Eric real quick. I spoke to Eric about 45 minutes yesterday. He's in good spirits. He sounds good. Still in the hospital. He's expecting to go home today. So hopefully he gets out and you know, and then he'll start his journey to healing. But he sounded good. We talked about 45 minutes. Normal Eric up and at him, so he didn't sound beat up or anything really. So I think he'll be back sooner than later. So you know, I was happy to hear, and you know, we'll be updated. So yeah, what's up, Mom?
Yo, good morning, bro. Can you guys hear me in the chat? Yeah, morning chat. How's everyone doing this Friday? Yeah, we like John said, we were up kind of late last night. We went to Broadway, saw that show about Lenny Bruce, and you know, John talked about it last week. But you guys, if you can, let me show you. If you can, you know, I don't know, the camera is kind of showing it in reverse for me. I don't know how it's showing up for you guys, but if you guys can, go watch it too. It was, I thought it was very well done, and you know, I think it's very relevant to what's going to be happening over the next coming years. It may not be immediately obvious to everyone, but you know, I've talked about it before that there's now a push for censorship on the internet, and it's not obvious, right? It's not an obvious push. It's a push through identification on the internet, and in so it's going to be. It's really about suppressing and controlling the information that's spread on the internet. So, yeah, I think it's going to be relevant once again, you know. And I think American history, certainly in the 20th century, has been like you know, a back and forth between censorship. You know, certainly, well, not just the 20th, but you know, now. It's a back and forth between censorship on the right and on the left. And where we're headed to is kind of like, in a lot of ways, it's them shaking hands and finding a solution where they both could censor for different reasons that are beneficial to the agendas of the people above them, which are, you know, largely corporate. But anyway, we're going to be talking again about the allegations that are in the NYPD now, and a sudden retirement. And you know, when people suddenly decide that they're gonna run out the door, it's usually something you know, you should raise an eyebrow to and wonder why you all of a sudden want to quickly run out the door. You know, after spending what 30 years in the NYPD, maybe more than 30 years. So
yeah. But before we get on the topic, just real quick on the whole Lenny Bruce thing. Obviously, it's on Broadway. You know, I put out stuff on my social media. Anybody interested in going, let me know. I'll send you guys the link. Definitely should check it out. Show's only running to the 28th, I believe. But it is really a relevant topic today. And I think both the left and the right don't see their own hypocrisy. And I don't think that, I don't know, like, you might be right. They might be shaking hands in the background. But the way I see it is like the useful idiots, us, we kind of don't see it when we do it. You know what I mean? We only see it when it's done to us. You know what I mean? And I think I heard a lot of that last night. There was an awesome Q&A after I have some video of it. I don't think it's appropriate to show it. I'll ask the theater managers if I could. But there was an awesome conversation, awesome back and forth between Randy Jurgensson and Lenny Bruce's attorney, arguing about a case that was over 60 years old. I mean, it was just wild. The dudes are both sharp guys. I mean, they're still at the top of their game. Guys that I would, I'll debate anyone. Those two, I was like, kind of like, whoa, these guys are up there, So these guys are up there. They're sharp as hell. And but there was a lot of things that was said after from the audience, and I think it was coming more from the leftist standpoint about how this country's turning fascist. And I'm like, well, where were you in 2020? You didn't think it was so fascist then? Did you think it was fascist during the COVID lockdowns? If we want to talk about free speech, we got to talk about free speech for everyone. One case maybe we could touch at the end, that's something that popped up, is we had Jonathan Rinaldi on here. He's known as the Sperminator. I don't know if you guys remember John. So John ran he ran for a couple of different seats, but he runs out of Queens traditionally. And John just got arrested for memeing about fake endorsements during his campaign. And I think, it really, to me, like I was thinking about it last night as I was sitting there watching the show. I took them as satirical. I knew that they weren't real. Everyone knew they weren't real. Everyone was like, stop, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Stop being an idiot. And I just found it with all the corruption that's coming out of New York City, all of the issues around New York City elections, you have the time to investigate nonsense. The kid didn't get elected. He didn't even come close. It really didn't affect the election outcome at all. And we spoke about that with Natasha Williams, who has a bill on the city council floor right now, who wants to make it illegal for you to be able to basically meme or make fun of politicians during an election cycle. Like the conversation that Lenny Bruce was having in 1964, we're having today in 2026. It's like, wait, so you're running for office, so we can't make fun of you? We can't tell the truth about you? We can't be satirical about you? There's certain things we can't bring up about you. And I think, everybody on both sides should be screaming, absolutely not. We're going to make fun of you all we want. And so that's just all I want to say. And I think that this platform is a real beacon of free speech, and it's been fighting back. It's been exercising the muscle of our First Amendment right. And I think a lot more people need to start doing it, because, like I keep saying, either you start using it or you're going to start losing it, and we're starting to lose it. So and like Mullen's 100% right, and even the people that came from the leftist standpoint, they were right about a lot of things they said, but they just don't see the hypocrisy when it comes out of the left, and they don't see that same fascism when it comes out of the left, and that's where they lose me. So so let's get into it. So James McCarthy, former commanding officer of Patrol Borough Manhattan South. We were hearing rumors that he was trying to retire the night before the raids. Never confirmed them. We don't know if, in fact, that's true. So he was raided the next morning. Him, Tarik Sheppard, Jeffrey Maddrey, and from what I'm hearing, few other people. I'm hearing a couple other people that aren't being reported in the media. So what happens is, yesterday, McCarthy puts his papers in to retire, goes running out the door, right? And obviously, does that raise eyebrows? Raises my eyebrows. I heard Winston Faison, a couple of you had sent me an Instagram post that he put out, a video that he put out, where he said, basically, everybody's innocent until proven guilty. And I agree with that. And he said, just because you're in the paper doesn't mean you're guilty. And I agree with that. And he said, just because they put a search warrant on your house doesn't mean you're guilty. And I'll even agree with that. But I'll say it's not just something that we shouldn't raise our eyebrows at. If this was the first allegations of bribery and corruption from cronies during the Adams administration, I would sit there and say, you know what? Give the guys the benefit of the doubt. But me personally, I won't lie. I think they're all guilty as hell. You know what I mean? And does that mean that they are? No, absolutely it doesn't. I'm just saying my own bias, from what I've seen, from what history has shown, from all of the corruption that we've covered, all of the bid rigging, the contracts that were being sold, all of the people that have been indicted, all of the stuff we know that occurred, I can't just downplay this as, oh yeah, everybody's innocent until proven guilty. It's like, yeah, everybody's innocent until proven guilty, and they're absolutely entitled to due process. You know, the same due process that myself or Marlon weren't entitled to. But at the end of the day, I mean, we'd have to be crazy to sit here and say, well, you know, it's really not a big deal that a federal judge gave probable cause to go after top-ranking former NYPD officials and draw up a search warrant on their home, because that means there was probable cause that there were proceeds or something of a crime there, or evidence of a crime, proceeds or evidence of a crime, that a federal judge signed off on that, and an active sitting chief. And then that same active sitting chief, who looked like he was going nowhere just 3 days ago, all of a sudden retires. I mean, there's, you know, and I've been saying it forever, you know, I agree with Adams when he used to say, you know, where there's smoke, there's not always fire. True, true, true. But there's plumes of smoke over his administration. And I'm saying where there's plumes of smoke, there's a lot of fire. And there's a lot of fire around that administration and those who are left. And I said it when Tom Donilon took it over, and I said it when Jessica Tisch took over. They did not do what they had to do. They had to get rid of everybody. You know, were they able to under Eric Adams? Probably not, right? And we'll go through that. But at the end of the day, if you were going to come in and you were going to clean up this organization and root it out, you would have came in with a microscope. Everybody would have been under the microscope, and you would have removed all of the leadership that let all of this insanity happen. So we'll get into it more in depth. I know that was just a broad overview and a rant, but I just want to say that yes, absolutely everything that we discuss is not proven at this point, but there's definitely going to be a lot of fire when it comes out of here, and there's been. It's not, you know, it's not just smoke. We've heard a lot of different things. So what do you got, Marlon? But before we get into it, sorry for my rant.
No. Yeah, I echo your statements certainly about the show. There was some questions asked there was some discussion asked that were on the left, and there was a comment from the gentleman who I think he runs the Revolutionary Bookstore in Harlem. He mentioned that we're headed towards fascism, and again, I'm not going to disagree on that, a lot of that point, you know. But the problem is, just because I disagree with where we're headed to doesn't mean that I agree with certainly with stuff like what Obama did. You know, I think we've been on this journey for a long time towards shutting down. You know, let's not forget the stuff that that administration did to journalists. Okay, we can't forget that, guys. Right. So I think we've been on this journey for a long time to where we're headed, and I think it's important that we stay critical of both sides. You know, and because remember again, history has shown that that censorship has come from both sides, depending on what what decade it is, you know, and certainly it's coming from the left now. I mean, it was coming from the left in the 2010s, you know, when we headed into the BLM and all that nonsense. But where we're headed to, it's a handshake on both the left and the right, because when they control your speech online, they'll be able to censor it, you know, depending on where the wind is blowing today and what the agenda is today. So, but I encourage you guys to go watch it. It's a very good performance, and you know, I think again, it's very relevant to history and New York history, and you know, and we also found out that you know, the role that Detective Jurgensson played in it, and it's very fascinating. He was you know, he seemed to be in the heart of a lot of at the center of a lot of New York history, and I'd just love to sit down and tell him to tell us what he's seen since in the last say the last 70 years in New York City. I'm sure your mind would actually be blown. In fact, we found out he was a friend of George Carlin, and that's like that kind of blew my mind too. But yeah, again,
Dude, but
it was a good show.
but not
You
to
guys
cut
should
you off,
watch it.
dude, but that was the funniest part, I think, of the whole thing. Everybody wanted to know. No, we'll go on the corruption in 1 second, but everybody wanted to know from Jurgensson how he felt about arresting Lenny Bruce. He actually didn't arrest Lenny Bruce. He had just came off the French Connection case, right? He had just came off the French Connection case. Kennedy gets assassinated. They move him into an undercover role where he's going undercover and he's trying to, and he's playing a homosexual role. He's trying to figure out who's killing homosexuals in the East Village, right? So the NYPD sets him up in an apartment. He's undercover in the apartment. During that time, the DA in Manhattan that goes after Lenny Bruce goes to Jurgensson and says, I need you to go to the Cafe A Go-Go, which is on Bleecker. Go down to Cafe A Go-Go and wear a wire and record this act. There's obscenity going on there. So he goes there and he records the act, like wearing a wire. Goes back. They're like, yeah, no, it didn't come good on tape. You got to go back again. They send him back. He goes back and he hands the tape over to the DA's office. DA's detectives actually arrest Lenny Bruce. But he was a boyhood friend. He said he had 5 friends, he said. I don't have many friends, but George Carlin is one of my 5 friends. He says, so after it comes out and Lenny Bruce is arrested, I tell him my role in it. And he says, George Carlin's pissed at me. How could you do this? And he's like, I didn't do anything wrong. We responded to a community complaint. I just doing my job. They told me to go there. I went there. Well, like, what do you want me to do? So he says, like a while back, a little bit while after, he goes to a show. He goes to a show that George Carlin's doing. And he's like, there's all these famous people in there to see George Carlin. And he announces all the famous people. And then he goes, and then we have an NYPD detective here, Detective Randy Jurgensson. They put a spotlight on Jurgensson. And when the spotlight comes on Jurgensson, he goes, and that's the scumbag that locked up Lenny Bruce. And he said the whole audience started booing him. I thought that was the funniest part of the whole thing, bro. So funny. So, but all right. Sorry, let's get on the corruption now. Sorry. That was hysterical though.
Yeah, guys. So like John said, Chief McCarthy, who was the commanding officer of Patrol Borough Manhattan South. For those of you civilians watching, James McCarthy would be the equivalent of your town sheriff. Okay, keep in mind, maybe even bigger than that. He'd be the equivalent of maybe Philadelphia's police commissioner.
Yeah.
Because think of it, there's a lot of people in New York City. We have a population of just under 8.5 million. We used to be 8.5, but we lost people to COVID, even though we lost people to the migration south post-COVID. But we've gained back some more due to the migrant situation. Okay, but we're still under 8.5 million. But that's a lot of people. Manhattan alone, I think Manhattan alone has close to 2 million now, or 1.5 million. So he's the borough chief of Manhattan South, which would probably, I'm going to guess, would be close to 1 million people there. So keep in mind,
8,700 cops in a city council report in 2024, Manhattan South alone. 8,700. It's bigger than almost, I think, every department across the country.
Well, most, yeah. It's like a mid-sized city, yeah. So yeah, he'd be the equivalent of your police department's commissioner, or your county sheriff. And he's, the papers are saying that he's quickly put in his he submitted his retirement papers on Thursday, a day after the investigators from the DOJ and the Southern District and the FBI raided his residence in Manhattan. So yeah, again, when you have such a long career in the NYPD and you're in one of once you reach the position of borough chief, I mean, it's a lost stop for a lot of chiefs, but if you're good enough, you go on to become a 3-star chief. And certainly he seemed to be up there with his connections. So you got to wonder about this, all right?
Yeah. So what are the allegations, right? Like, let's get into that a little bit, because it's being reported in the media that the allegations are around bribery. What's the bribery? You know, I've been reading a lot. I told you guys that. A lot of you guys know I've been reading the official hearing of the Lexow committee. The Lexow committee was an investigation, the first investigation into NYPD corruption. It started in 1894. One of the things I like during that investigation, they bring numerous cops on the stand and numerous civilians on the stand about one form of bribery. And that form of bribery was paying for transfers within the police department, paying for promotions within the police department, and paying for assignment to the police department. Now, what I found interesting reading it was the people that were accused of paying for promotions that were actually promoted already. Even if the Lexow committee had some witnesses saying, "Oh yeah, I lent this guy $600, and then next thing we know, he's a captain or whatever it is. He came there and he told me that he needed it for promotion, or his wife came to me and said he needed the money for promotion." Whatever it was, there was all different things. There was also accusations that they were taking money from businesses and saying, well, you know, the captain needs to pay for his promotion, you know, all these crazy things. But obviously the people that were promoted never admitted it. Like, I didn't pay. No, I needed that money for XYZ, whatever it was. But there were a few people during that time that said they paid the right people in the upper echelon of the NYPD at the time, and they never got promoted, or they never got their transfer, or they never got assigned to the NYPD. And what we're hearing is that very similar occurred in 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, is that the upper echelon of the NYPD was actually selling promotions, selling transfers, and selling appointment to the NYPD. And they were doing so for $15,000. From credible sources, they're hearing, and they spoke with, they're hearing that there was a rash of people taking pension loans for the sum of $15,000. And immediately after those pension loans happened, those individuals were promoted. Now, we don't know who brokered that deal. We don't know specifically if it's tied to McCarthy, Sheppard, Maddrey, or all of them. And we don't know that there's not more people involved. But we've been talking about this for a long, long time, right? We've been saying this for 3 years, that there were allegations that people were buying assignments, buying promotions. And what we're hearing is that some people that actually bought them, it never came through. And the thing with me is why I believe there's a lot of fire behind the smoke is when you go back to early days of Keechant Sewell, and we were reporting that, in fact, she couldn't promote her own people. And then, you know, Caban takes over, and that was an entire disaster, right? They focused on this podcast more than they focused on partying in the podcast more than they focused on doing anything else related to public safety or trying to fix their entire department. And then we had Tom Donlin take over. And again, we were hearing that Tom Donlin wasn't able to promote his own people. And they were holding promotions with an iron fist. And he names in there Tarik Sheppard, and he names in there John Schell, and he names in there Kaz Daughtry, and he names in there Jeffrey Maddrey. McCarthy's not named in that at all. But what he says is that they were using his stamp. If you go back to his court document, they were using his stamp. He's the only person with the official stamp. They were going behind his back and changing the promotions. We even saw Tarik Sheppard promoted himself, took his staff stamp, took the police commissioner's stamp without his approval, without a ceremony, and just started walking around with 3 stars on his uniform with a 3-star chief. Promoted himself, no ceremony, no nothing. No one knew who did it. According to Donlan's court documents, when you look at it, he approaches him about it, and Tarik says that Adams promoted him. And then next thing you know, Tarik Sheppard's a 2-star chief. He's not actually a 3-star chief. So you see there was this real concern about who controls the promotions. And to me, why would you want to control the promotions and take that away from the police commissioner unless this was a source of income for you? Unless there was something that you needed to be done, or you were just power hungry. But if you want to give out the allegations that people are paying for promotions and they're paying these particular individuals for promotions, oh yeah, and then by the way, all of these people are going around the police commissioner's back and promoting people that he or she did not want to get promoted, you have to say, very concerning. And I think it concerns a lot of different things on this job, particularly morale. I think when you talk about retention, it 100%, I think this plays a bigger role in retention than any form of legislation that could be put in place today, whether it's, oh yeah, we'll move you tier 2A guys to tier 2, we'll give you those protections, or we'll let you guys work from 63 to 65 years old. I think when you look at that, people that work really hard, competent individuals, watching people get assignments that they don't deserve, getting promotions that they don't deserve, and being stepped over, it caused thousands of people to leave the job way before they would have. And it's a high form of corruption. We were talking last night, and I think I really changed my stance on a lot of things that I thought were just not a big deal. And we'll go further on the next go around. But yeah, I think it really concerning. And like I said, I don't think this is just a little smoke. I think this is a really, really big deal. And I know what everyone's thinking, like, oh, how long is it going to take for all this stuff to play out? I don't know, dude. And that's a question I have. I'm not going to lie. I've been real critical of the federal government and taking so long to go through all of this corruption and root these people out. I've been super critical of New York City government, the city council, the mayor, whoever has been in the seat of the police commissioner, and rightfully so, because they all deserve it. Because again, like I said, the only thing to do was to walk in to the NYPD and either completely revamp it or have the federal government take it over, because it's clearly systemically corrupt. And in the past, we've looked at the NYPD as being systemically corrupt, but you were talking about the rank and file cop. You were talking about Joe Schmo on the street. You weren't talking about the upper tier of the NYPD, the upper echelon. And today what we see is all of the corruption comes from the top. It's all boiling down from the top. And even though the majority of rank and file officers today are not corrupt, if we allow this to fester, that'll change within this decade. That'll change in this decade, where once again, the entirety of the department will be a systemically corrupt department. But as of right now, it's festered solely at the top of the NYPD, and there's been nothing done to correct those systems. And there's people sitting in place today that have no business being in the NYPD and should have been removed in 2023, the minute all this came out.
Yeah, it's true. Where do we start in this one? Before we go, I just want to point out, I got a rebuttal to what Chief Faison is saying. Okay, I want to point out here that Chief Faison is not exactly an unbiased opinion on this. Let's remember that you're from Brooklyn North, Chief, and that Brooklyn North clique is very connected to Maddrey, and that Brooklyn North clique has been getting into a lot of trouble. You look at all the names that have come from the Henderson, Wasn't Taylor a Brooklyn North guy too?
Taylor was a Brooklyn North guy.
Yeah, Chell was Brooklyn North. It's that entire Brooklyn North clique. And let's not forget that you were promoted to chief under Jeffrey Maddrey. Okay, so I'm not so sure you're an unbiased. You're coming from an unbiased position on this. Okay, but
And I'm not so sure that he's not sweating either while he's making these videos. Like,
yeah,
let's call that out too.
yeah. Well, I'm not putting any allegations out there because we don't hear anything about Faison.
No, I'm not putting any
you know.
allegations, but we actually did have serious allegations against Faison. But I think from what he says, kind of cleared it out, right? But I think there's a lot of people that are nervous. I do.
Yeah, I agree. Though. I think there is 100% a lot of people nervous due to those connections to Maddrey and again that Brooklyn North clique. So I just want to put that out there. That I mean, and by the way, I also see attempts by Maddrey's lawyers to kind of distance themselves from the whole pay for promotion thing, because his lawyer said that he was basically raided due to Frank Carone's investigation. And I read I'm not completely through to Frank Carone's indictment, but there's no mention of NYPD officials in it. There's plenty mention of other officials who inadvertently push this with his stuff, but I didn't see anything about NYPD being involved in that. So you have to wonder, and as John mentioned before, that was conducted by the Eastern District, whereas the Southern District are the ones that are investigating the whole pay for promotion, all those allegations. So the point here is that I I think like John said, a lot of people are sweating, and I think there's a lot more to come out soon about all of this. And I'm curious just how many people are going to end up locked up for this. When you come back to me, I'm going to do a lot of referencing of Commissioner Donlan's lawsuit, in where he mentions how these guys, we're talking Maddrey, we're talking who is the Maddrey, Kinsella, um, Tarik Sheppard, Chell, all these guys kind of gate kept the promotions, and they kind of locked out Commissioner Donlan from promoting who the guys he wanted to. And considering the allegations we know now, I mean, you put two and two together, and it's all starting to form a kind of a bigger picture of what was going on there.
Yeah, well, and again, like just I just want to double down on this. Like, exactly what Donlan said was exactly what we were saying was happening during Sewell's time. Exactly. The gatekeeping of the promotions, the being boxed out, the being watched, the being monitored. Really, I sit there and I'm like, I can't believe that Eric Adams was stupid enough to put an outsider around these guys, because they were basically ravenous wolves and they were bullies, and they wanted to control the department, and they wanted to control it from behind and using someone else as the face. And I think they ran rampant behind the scenes. And there was a lot of things that occurred during that administration that I can't believe that people stayed around for. There was a lot of allegations about McCarthy as well over 2 years ago. And I said, how is he still on this job? There was ton of allegations. I'm like, I don't understand how even if I like you, I come in as the police commissioner, I come in as the mayor. Even if I like you, I'm going to be like, look, there's XYZ happening. We know that the feds are investigating you for XYZ. You got to go. I don't need you in this position. Like, it's just too much heat. We don't need you here. We don't know what happened. We wish you well, but these are appointed positions, 2-star and above. There's no reason to keep people around like that that are you want to go back to captain, do it, but you're not sitting here at this rank. You're not gonna be privy to all this stuff. You're not gonna be in the same position where you could maneuver things. I mean, look what happened with the Inspector Taylor, right? The panic button thing. I mean, we called it corruption before it ever came out that it was corruption. We're like, what is this? Why are we wasting money on this? Why do we have an inspector on TV pushing a proprietary product and pushing a company? It's illegal. You're not allowed to do it. Breaks all the procurement rules. Yet this guy's going on a media tour talking about this technology that we don't need. And by the way, I think all those technology contracts should be looked into. And the fact that no one's doing it makes me think, like, is there any oversight in any of this? But it's particularly that one. I mean, it was so obvious. I'm like, what? Why would you need a push button when you have a phone? Why would you could text 911? You could do any of this stuff. Like, what do we need this technology that needs to be monitored by another unit when we're losing manpower left and right under the Adams administration? I mean, we're dwindling down. He was succeeding at his mission of lowering the overall headcount. And and we were called crazy. We were racist. We were only saying it because it's black executives. If it was white executives, we wouldn't be saying that. And we're like, no, we're saying that because shit doesn't make sense. What they're saying doesn't make sense. And then what did we see? He gets arrested. Indictment gets unsealed. We go through the unsealment, and I'm looking at the text messages. And unless the feds planted those text messages, which I don't think happened, but unless that happened, I mean, I see somebody that's really comfortable in texting back and forth with a vendor that he needs money for his Christmas party, that he wants money for XYZ, and he's going to do this, and in exchange for that, they're going to get this contract. Very comfortable on text. And to me, I'm like, I dealt with vendors. I was never that comfortable with them. As a matter of fact, if we went anywhere, I paid. I was like, you want coffee? I'll get you coffee. Don't worry. Don't go in your pocket. A dollar. Like, I wouldn't. No. I don't want it. I don't want it. Don't. And by the way, they knew that too. And the vendors I dealt with were like, oh, no. You can't. We can't do that. You can't do that. Whatever it is. Or we would just go Dutch. You know what I mean? You pay, I'll pay. Right? Nobody could say anything. And to watch people just flout all those rules when it comes to vendors and give contracts away for New York City like it's their own private business, like that they own, especially someone in the police department, that made no sense. I'm like, that to me just showed the culture of corruption within the NYPD, because he was way too comfortable in doing that. He learned that from somewhere. And just because we know about one contract, I don't for one second believe that there weren't hundreds of others in the background. And I'm not saying just with him. I'm saying with that whole clique, and there's a lot of guys that aren't named in a lot of things. And there's a lot of guys that got their phones taken, that they never got their house raided. But, I'm going to fall back on the police department that I was taught. Like, if you're a sergeant and your guys are doing something and you don't know about it, you failed to supervise. You might even be liable criminally or administratively. Why is that not the case with the upper echelon of the NYPD? Why are, you're in these high-ranking deputy commissioner or chief spots? How are you allowed to play dumb? Oh, I didn't know it was happening. Like, oh, you didn't know it was happening? You were at those dinners. You were hanging out at those parties. You were on those text message threads. You didn't know what was happening? You were in charge of the overtime. You were watching the overtime get funneled out the door. You were watching everyone go over the cap. You removed the chief of department's overtime from the top 100 list, from the top 400 list. You removed the chief of patrol's overtime from that list as well. You're not dumb. You were directly involved. And whether you could prove it or not doesn't matter. Like I always say, I'll go back to the casino line. Either you're too stupid to be in the position you're in, or you were in on it. But either way, you have no business leading the New York City Police Department. And it's not personal. I could think that you're a funny guy. You're a nice guy. You're a good girl. You're a nice girl. You suck at your job. Something's really, really, really wrong. Something's really wrong, and there's a lot more names that should be named. That's all I'm going to say. There's a lot more names. There's a lot more warrants. There's a lot of indictments that should have happened already, in my opinion. I was never a federal agent. I was never a federal officer, so I can't say that. But I'm telling you right now, just because IAB was involved in this investigation, I have absolutely zero faith in Group 1 in IAB, because I have the whole record of what happened to us and how they investigated, and it was clearly a manipulated investigation to benefit the upper echelon, to hide their criminality, to hide their corruption. And they basically, what they did was they investigated myself and Eric for over a year, trying to decertify us, take away our pensions, and throw us in jail for telling the truth.
Yeah. I think it was the culture of certainly within that clique, but let's keep in mind that this also happened during that same time frame. And what's similar about this? Well, here was a chief who was pressuring the businesses in his area, in the area of Patrol Borough Manhattan North, to contribute to his to his giveaways, to his turkey. I think it was his turkey giveaway and his parties, and he was putting pressure in commanding officers to sell tickets for his parties. So I certainly think there was a certain culture that was present at the top and present within Maddrey's clique, And make no mistake, Rule is connected to Jeffrey Banks, and his name came up in Phil Banks, rather, in Phil Banks his allegations in the mid 2010s. And as you know, Phil Banks was the unindicted co-conspirator of that federal investigation. So Rule's name came up, and it came up in terms of similar allegations once again in Manhattan North. So I think there was a certain culture that was present within Maddrey's circle. And once Maddrey and Eric Adams became mayor, I guess they must have felt that we can pretty much do whatever we want, and we can spread that culture out from Manhattan North into the rest of the city. And hence we got to the that whole, let's remember also the Coney Island bar owner who was being pressured to to contribute to Caban's brother in order to prevent NYPD from visiting his visiting and scrutinizing his bar, And let's also not forget that the NYPD during that time frame also got rid of the March program, and moved to a more of a selective enforcement of the city's nightlife. So I think it was a culture that came from the top, and as soon as Eric Adams became mayor, they went they started spreading that culture throughout the outside of that clique into the rest of the department. But just to go on to, again, this is Donlan's Commissioner Donlan's the lawsuit. I put a link in the chat for you chat members, right? There's a lot of mention of promotions in here. In fact, it's on 65 pages, right? Donlan mentions repeatedly how these guys tried to gatekeep the promotional process, and even took names that he that he put on there to be promoted. They would remove it behind his back and then promote their own guys, right? And it's very interesting. We thought you can't not read this and read what he says about the promotions and not think to yourself how this plays into the allegations of paying for promotions. It to me, it's it kind of paints a picture of what was going on behind the scenes. And again, all the names that were rated by the feds are in here. Tarik is in there. Maddrey is in there. Who else is in there? Kinsella is in there. So
Yeah, I mean, the other thing was, I mean, if you look at the Epps case, she said something in one of the interviews. She said, "Oh, all the contracts were in my computer files that the feds took." Something like that. Something along those lines. So what does she mean by contracts? Favors for people you know? Or bribes? What are we talking about? And then I had an interesting conversation last night about lowering the college credits. But before even lowering the college credits, I never really thought about how nepotism and cronyism is corruption. But I think based upon the conversation I had last night, I actually think it is. I don't think it's a high form of corruption. I don't think it's the same as bribery. I don't think it's the same as shaking businesses down. I don't think it's the same as an extortion, racketeering, nightclub racket. I don't think it's like that. I don't think it's stealing from criminals, dealing drugs, covering up sex trafficking. I don't think it's on that level. But when you think about placing someone in a unit solely because either they paid you, which is a high form of corruption, or because they're your nephew or your son, and they have no business being in there. They don't have the aptitude to be in there, the experience to be in there. Not only does it affect the entire unit, it really diminishes the service for the people of the city of New York. When you call 911, you are getting a much lessened product, a much different. You're getting you're getting a cheapened quality product. You're getting a product that is just not what you're paying for. And as stewards of our tax money, the upper echelon of the NYPD should be looking to put out the best possible product for taxpayers, consistently looking for the best of the best. When you're putting people in positions that don't have experience, don't have any know-how, you're putting them into investigative roles when they can't even run a patrol vehicle. They don't have the aptitude. They can't read or write well. It is corruption. It is. And I never really looked at it like that before. I just always kind of thought, it was bullshit. It doesn't matter. But it does. And I think that's one of the reasons why, like, I don't know that in the back of my head, but like, there's a lot of people I like in the police department, but I would never get in the call with them. There's a lot of people I'd hang out with after work that I didn't like the way they operated at all. I didn't think that they were effective in their job. I didn't like their approach to policing. I didn't think they were dirty cops or anything. I just didn't agree with the methods of how they police. They were more of a lay back, let's see what happens, and we'll deal with it as it happens. But I'm not going to go out there and look for anything. So those people I would never put in a proactive unit. I would never put them in an investigative unit. Why? Because they don't want to be there. Right. But what happens is cronyism, nepotism, and now what we're hearing, well, what we've been hearing is bribery is putting people into these positions where when you call 911, you're going to get a diminished service because that person doesn't even know how to do their job. They don't even know the basics of law enforcement yet. Maybe they're a special victims detective. Maybe they're in the major case squad. Maybe they're in intel guarding an elected official or someone who comes in, a high level person who's coming in, a president of another country. And we look like idiots. And I think we've seen that diminishment in the police department in a lot of our central units. I mean, people say it all the time now, like the detective shield means nothing. It's completely watered down, where the detective shield used to mean something in the New York City Police Department. It used to be like, wow, you were a detective. It was more prestigious, looked at more prestigious nationally than even being a supervisor. You run into people all the time, like, you're a sergeant, you're a lieutenant, and they're like, oh, that's really cool. Are you going to be a detective? right? Because that was how prestigious NYPD detectives were looked at. They were looked at nationally as they were above everybody else, right? They were in the rank of supervision. Now, it's not true in the rank, but as far as merit based, and I was never a detective. I did want to be a detective. I wanted to get into the squad. Never happened for me, but and you guys could all say why, um, but I from people that I know that were detectives prior to being supervisors, they all laud being a detective. That was their best promotion. That was their most fond promotion. They really felt like a sense of pride for that, and I could see that. But all of the things that we're talking about here, what it does is it diminishes all of these things. Being a detective, being a second grade detective, being a first grade detective, then being a sergeant detective squad, which is like a promotion for detective, and then being a lieutenant detective squad. And here's the thing, like if in fact this did occur, and I do believe it did occur, by the way. So let's get that out there. Like I personally believe it's my own bias. I don't have hard, solid proof of it, but like there's just too much of it for it, not some of it not to be true. Um, then it wasn't just these names because there had to be people brokering these deals. And I personally believe that if you look at who was brokering them, I would be paying attention to the fraternals who were in charge. Who were the fraternals that were running, that were up there with the upper echelon, with the police commissioner, with the chief of department? Who were those fraternals that were close? And I want to know the names, and I want to know the names of who we believe took these pension loans and who got promoted or who didn't get promoted. And I want to know how that deal got brokered because I don't believe it was just these deals that were happening between two people. I think these were brokered. This was a high level conspiracy that was happening amongst other conspiracies that were happening during these times. And I think everyone that was involved in this should be removed from the New York City Police Department and arrested and face criminal charges. So I just want, and whether I know you or I don't know you, I don't really care. That's how I feel about it. You're worse than a criminal, in my opinion. I have more respect for people who grow up in bad situations and are lifelong criminals because they didn't have the opportunities and they didn't have the blessing that you've been afforded and misused. So I don't care who it is. As more comes out, I'm just letting you know, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked for 1 second when I'm calling for harsher penalties than I would for anybody else. Because I personally believe you should all be wearing orange jumpsuits. And I believe that you should be stripped of your pensions. I'm going to start a new campaign. It's going to be called Give It to Mandani. Your pension. Give it to Mandani. Because you don't deserve to ever have worn this uniform or this shield or held any title that you held. And I don't care what you did in the past. Doesn't matter to me. I don't care. Oh, yeah, he was the police. No, he was a dirty cop. He had no integrity, folded when it mattered. Didn't matter. Or she. So I just want to get that out there. So for people that are going to turn on me and be like, oh, this guy's anti-cop. No, I'm not anti-cop. I'm anti-dirty cop. And if you're a dirty cop, you belong wearing an orange jumpsuit for a lot longer than a lot of people who didn't get the blessings that you were afforded, right? They just were trying to keep their head above water and they did some things that they shouldn't have did. You had it all and you gave it away because you're a greedy fuck.
Yeah, yeah. And that lawsuit talks about how demoralizing it is for detectives, for guys who actually worked hard for their shield, and didn't get promoted, and instead the people who didn't earn it, who didn't put in the work, instead were given a shield, and it's very demoralizing, and it hurts the overall morale of the job. And yet this went on, and these guys would repeatedly get on camera and tell you how much they love cops, and how much they work for NYPD. And did they really, or were they working for themselves and their own self-interest? Because if you actually cared about the job, which you would think people in the positions that people like Maddrey and Sheppard and Daughtry and Chell and all these guys, you'd have thought that people in that high of a position would have a real passion for protecting the the interests of the job and of cops, and they didn't. Okay, they didn't. When you're promoting people who didn't put in the effort for that gold shield, you're really hurting cops. You're hurting those people too, because those people are being put into positions where they're unqualified for it, and they at some point they're going to be tasked with doing things that they haven't, their experience and their knowledge hasn't prepared them for it. They're not prepared to be detectives. Uh, and you're so by putting them there, you're actually not looking out for them either. But again, this hurts the overall morale of the job, because guys see people getting promoted who shouldn't be, and they think to themselves, you know what, this job is just not worth it. This it's just not worth it for me to put myself out there to possibly, you know, get thrown in prison for being a proactive cop, for going the distance. And I see no potential, light at the end of the tunnel. You know, so things like this get me angry, because I remember all these times when these guys would get on camera and try and defend themselves by throwing their job in front of it, of their misdeeds. Remember all these times Chell would say, "Hey, listen, you're these guys are criticizing the hard work of the men and women of the NYPD." When we repeatedly would say that, no, we're not criticizing cops, we're criticizing you morons for not doing your job and protecting these cops. You know, and so you'd see that all the time, and yet behind the scenes, these guys wouldn't be, these guys would take out the guys that should have been promoted, and instead put the people. And you've already seen the names, by the way. Okay, we've already talked about this before, the 2-year wonders, and the guys who were connected because their dad was chief, or their dad was you know had some position in the executive ranks of the NYPD, get promoted in 2 years. Just off of impact, you get a gold shield already. So this all demoralizes the job, and I hope that a conclusion is reached by this, from this investigation by the feds, and I do hope people go to jail for this, because this is completely out of line, and you're not only are you affecting the morale of the job, but you're affecting the institutional knowledge and experience of the job. And eventually that stuff actually, it not only again hurts those cops, but it hurts the public at large, when those cops have to, when those cops are put in positions where they have to put that knowledge to work, and they're not prepared for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. And the other thing I've been hearing, like the theme over the last couple of days that I've been hearing, like as I've been talking to people, is, I like McCarthy. I like McCarthy. I'm like, okay, nice guy. Okay. If he was involved in taking bribes in any form or manner, whether it was businesses, whatever, he should be arrested, stripped of his pension, sent to jail. Like, I dirty cop. I don't, it's never how you start out. It's always how you finish, and watch him go run out of the door. I'm sure, and I'm sure that legislation he was hoping for, I get to stay till I'm 65 now, if the allegations are true and it comes out, I have no pity for anybody. For nobody. Like zero. Like I'm not kidding. Like, not only I would be worse than, I think, the far left socialists if I was on the bench and I had to deem what the sentencing would be. It would be much worse. Not because I hate anybody, and not because I have any hate in my heart for anybody, but again, because I think you're in such a blessed position. You make enough money. you have such a good life set up for you. And if you would bend your integrity for either politics to stay in the good graces of somebody or for financial gain, I have zero respect for you. And I don't feel bad anything that happened to you. You know, the same way nobody feels bad for Marlon Bethel, I'll feel even less bad for you. I'll feel even less bad. Like you deserve, because you know, Marlon didn't deserve what happened to him. And if even a quarter of what is being said is true, you deserve everything and more that's going to happen to you. You deserve everything and more. You deserve to lose everything. And Marlon didn't, and that's what bothers me. Like, you know, it bothers me that like these guys are being accused of high crimes, and people want to talk about if they're nice or not, if they shook your hand, and I'm like, I don't give a shit if they're nice guys. Like, it's good. You could be nice in jail. You know, we're supposed to visit people in jail. Actually, I haven't. I don't. Maybe I'll visit them, talk to them. You know, I think, you know, we all make our bet. We all make our bet on the things that we'll go along with. And I know myself, there's no way that I'm going along with any of this stuff. You know, if I don't care if it's the police commissioner, I don't care if it's the mayor. Maybe if I was a young cop and I didn't know any better, maybe if I didn't realize it was illegal because I'm an idiot and I didn't understand what was happening. But for you to tell me, a guy with over 10 years on the job, doesn't know that accepting bribes for promotions wrong, doesn't know that accepting bribes for transfers wrong, doesn't know that driving around, having someone's brother drive around with the police detail, shaking business down is wrong. If you don't know that a guy coming in, former NYPD detective coming into Comstat and threatening you that you better not do any SLA notifications isn't corruption, if you don't know that, I don't feel bad for you because you 100% know that. Or either that or you're too stupid to be in your job. And then in that aspect, you got to go anyway. So I really don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for anyone. And you know, and I think that's the part that I think a lot of people don't understand about me is like, I'm a nice guy. I'm nice to everybody. I don't care if you're a criminal. I don't care, whatever. You could even get convicted of all these crimes and go to jail. I'll still be nice to you. I don't care. But I'm not going to have any mercy on you, and I'm not going to not talk about it, and I'm not going to not say anything about it and not give my opinion on it because I have opinions, and this is life, you know. And I personally think it's honestly disgusting that it's all went this long. And just to go back on these technology contracts, when you're watching police executives and their sole goal is on social media to push companies and to push technology in order to get contracts, millions and millions of dollars in contracts to funnel to these companies, it is 100% a crime to do that. And we saw that for 4 years. We saw that happen for 4 years for all these stupid technologies that everyone knows are dumb. And I'm not knocking the drones. Like, as I said, we've said it numerous times on here. Me and Eric broke it down for forever. Drone is good technology. Should absolutely be utilized. But it ain't going to replace a cop. And yet you were sold that over and over and over and over again. And New York City taxpayers spent hundreds of millions of dollars. And we watched this idiot go all over the news, push technology and push a company. And no one said a word when it was a clear violation of procurement rules. Clear. And we saw it with the panic buttons. We saw it with the stupid metal detectors. We saw it with the garbage cans. We saw it with all of this nonsensical shit. And then we were saying forever with the migrant contracts, like, this isn't right. Like, they're giving no big contracts to their friends. And they're either giving it to them because they like it or there's dirty deals going on. And what do we hear time and time and time again? They were selling these contracts. They were selling. You think just because there's one instance where there's an allegation that somebody took $120K and then that guy got $100 million migrant contract, you think that's the only one? Let me know, because I got stuff to sell you too, if that's what you think. Because, like I said, culture of corruption and the people that were involved in that culture of corruption, a lot of them remain in the New York City Police Department, whether they did this or not. You know, and just to go on Marino a little bit, I know Marino. I worked with him in the 120. I thought he was a nice guy. I didn't think he was much of a cop ever. I'll be honest with you. I thought he used his hooks to get into the positions that he needed to be in. I thought he did the right things with studying, and he studied his way up. But if that allegation is even half true, if he only did a quarter of what Donlan said he should do, he should have been removed right off the bat. Why is he still in the New York State Police Department today? I don't care what unit he's in. Why is he there? What do you need him for? Why is he a chief? You know, and it's just more stuff like that. You know, it none of it makes sense to me ever. You know, and that's why I always break down with the city council hearings, and you have Kinsella sitting there during the overtime hearing and the overtime portion, and Tish is saying, "Well, we have our great first deputy commissioner in charge of the overtime now," and I'm like, "Oh, the same deputy commissioner that was in charge of the overtime 3 years ago when all the shit was going on? That's weird. Doesn't look right to me."
Yeah. For some reason, she in particular seems to, doesn't have any. There's no repercussions for her lack of preparedness when she gets in front of city council. It's strange to me how you get crucified at like a bad comstat. Especially we back in the 77 we had a there was one of the commanding officers had a bad comstat, and we knew it was really bad. I don't know how the video actually was shown on the TV in the muster room, but we saw it as a live as it was happening, and it was bad. And we kind of knew after that this guy was going to be out of here in a couple of weeks, and sure enough, he was out of there in a couple of weeks. But that was just one bad comp stat. Imagine you have multiple bad comp stats. I would think that you'd certainly have been gone after that. But using Kinsella at city council multiple times, with a bad presentation or a failure to know the things that she should have known, and yet she's still there. So I'm confused how exactly that works, But again, like John said, these people, we don't understand how these people still remaining in these positions, And even after their name gets roped up in these allegations, I would think some of these allegations, like this whole pay for promotion thing, are so it's so bad, it's so bad that I would think the mere mention of your name in this would have would have gotten you booted, or transferred it from that position that you were at the least. But apparently not. You got to wonder at this point if Tish needs an actual federal indictment to come down before she puts pressure on people to get out of there, or before she transfers people. I mean, I think I mentioned Rule Stephenson a while ago, right? I'm surprised that guy wasn't asked to leave. I mean, your name came up on the Phil Banks years ago, and now here you are again, and you also have a sexual harassment allegation against you with I mean, how many times your name gonna come up?
Dude, we could literally go through the upper echelon, and it would be like 60% of them would have to be gone. Like if you were really looking to do change, like if you were really looking to affect change, it's wild. So much stuff has came out, dude. Like it would be impossible to like break it all down, and it's only been 4 years. Like it's wild, bro. It's only been 4 years. Like it's not, we've talked about so much of all this stuff. And here's another guy we spoke about, civilian, because we always talk about how the civilians are taking over, right? What's this guy's name? Brian. What the hell's his name?
Adams. Brian Adams.
Brian Adams. Sounds familiar last name to you guys? So he just got sent out. He just got kicked out of the police department. We spoke about him at length. There was a sexual harassment allegation against him. I believe the city of New York settled that allegation, and nothing came out of it. But what was it with Adams? Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up right now. So, a civilian official in NYPD Community Affairs Bureau ousted after alleged misdeeds. Let's hear this. Does this sound familiar to you? Top civilian official in the NYPD's Community Affairs Bureau was previously accused of sexually harassing coworkers, is now out of a job after he was wrapped up in other alleged misdeeds. Brian Adams, a director in the Bureau, was fired after a probe found he submitted hundreds of unworked hours for pay, misused a department vehicle, lied to investigators about a number of things. A source familiar with the department told the Post. Adams was accused of sexually harassing 2 women 7 years ago, but those allegations are not connected to his dismissal, according to the source. Adams did not return a voicemail, but a representative speaking on his behalf, Reverend Kevin McCall, said Adams denied the claims brought by the department that cut his career short. He was very shaken up, and this action transpired. McCall, a civil rights leaguer, said of the termination. Did McCall ever call you, Marlon, about anything? Did he ever want to rally for you? No,
Right.
no, that's all right. You could just fire black people for nothing, right? Unless you're connected to the grift, unless there's somehow they could grift off you. An NYPD spokesperson said would only say Thursday that Adams is no longer on the police force. The ousted employee, they're going on the alleged complaints. One of the alleged victims, Latina Brown, claimed in a lawsuit filed in 2024, Adams came to her desk and displayed an erect penis through his pants. Nice guy. Adams declined at the time, but a police source said he denied the allegations that said that she knew that she was going to get fired, and that's why she did it. Court papers show the legal action was voluntarily dismissed last month following several settlement conferences. A court document dated January 21st, 2025, indicated that Brown had reached a settlement with the city. So what does that mean? City paid her out, right? Brian Adams has always answered the calls and been available to the community anytime, day, night, McCall said, adding this stepped up during tense times between police and the city. It's weird. I never seen him out there. It's weird. The community is going to speak up about this character, McCall said. Supposedly there's going to be a rally today at like 3 p.m. I think either in Brooklyn or at One Police Plaza. I'm not sure. Nothing that anybody should pay attention to. But wow. A civilian that came in the police department with the last name Adams is accused of and removed from. He was accused of sexual harassment complaints that the city winded up paying money out and indemnifying him for, and then is not fired, not removed from the New York City Police Department because of that, and then's accused of working hundreds of hours, well, putting in for pay for hundreds of hours that he actually never worked. And you know what's weird about that, Marlon, is like, oh wow, well he got fired, but how come he wasn't arrested? Where's the indictment? Where's the Manhattan DA? Breg, is there some reason? Do you know somebody named Adams that you don't like for some reason you don't bring criminal cases against, or somebody related to people named Adams? Is there something there? Because it appears that prosecution's only for some, and others, hey, look, we had to do what we had to do, but we're not gonna bring criminal charges though, because we dealt with it administratively. There's a lot of stuff here, man, that really, really bothers me. It really bothers me. The other thing that bothers me, remember Tish when they were talking about at the city council hearing when Menon asked her about the misuse of department vehicles, which is also blatant corruption, misuse of police funds. And we had executives in the New York City Police Department that had 7 cars. Some of them had 19 drivers. I mean, I don't even know what's happening. Who do we see last night? We saw Mondani last night. He had like seven vehicles. It's like ridiculous, like complete misuse of, but at least he's the mayor. We had lower down police executives who had bigger entourages than he did, taxpayer funded, and they asked Tish, well, how come, who was penalized? Like who was disciplined for this or fired or anything? Oh, no, nobody, because they were given permission. So then why weren't, and then Menon didn't say anything, like she just dropped it. But the obvious next question is, well, then why weren't the supervisors disciplined? And again, supervisors cannot give you permission to violate department rules or regulations or violate the law. So it's a cop-out. It's bullshit. They all should have been disciplined for that, heavily disciplined, and they all should have had to pay back money for that misuse of funds, and they weren't.
Yeah. I saw a comment there. McLovin. Hey, McLovin, you used to work in the 7-7? Just curious. We had a lieutenant there who we used to call McLovin too. So, but anyway, McLovin says he's related to Adrian Adams. We don't know, but I've heard that rumor before. I'm going to say though that I tend to think it's it might be because he knows McCall. I think there might be some sort of connection there to McCall. And I think that maybe that's what's protecting him, because
McCall's not getting him a director position in the NYPD. Being a director in the NYPD is about the same salary as an inspector.
True.
Like, you're not getting that position without not knowing high level people. And I know McCall is tied into the upper echelon of the NYPD from the community affairs division, but I don't see it like whether maybe a lower down job. I don't see you becoming a director. That is coming from the top.
Well, yeah, he definitely knows somebody, because again, we saw another guy. Again, we saw this guy get away with, with his misdeeds and with no real consequences. When if that was you that it happened, that did that, you'd at the least be you'd be walking out the door right now. If not walking out the door in handcuffs, right? And as we talked about him a while ago, but I said he's connected to some very, besides the community, right? He's connected to some very, very wealthy businessmen, So I tend to think that's one of the reasons why he is where he is still. But anyway, yeah. Again, how are these guys still here? Okay. And being booted to counterterrorism division while still keeping your rank is not really a punishment. It's not really much of a punishment, considering the workload is much less, and the connections you make in counterterrorism in terms of his employment post retirement are a lot better than merely being a borough chief. Okay, you're talking to a lot of corporate business leaders when you're in a position like this, and a lot of guys connected to security and technology. So again, that's not much of a punishment. And to that, like, why is he still here after all of this? It's like, are we waiting on these guys to be perp walked by the feds in order before we put pressure on them to leave, and we like clear out the rot that's in the NYPD? I just don't get it. I have a video that I want to show before we close out today, about just to show you guys just how much the detective shield actually means for those guys who worked hard to get there. I'm sorry about that if you heard a big truck driving by, but just to show you guys just how meaningful that shield is to guys who have gone past the shield and gone up to chiefs. Okay, they still look back on that shield as being very important to them, and very meaningful to them, that promotion. And which goes back to what I said, why it really hurts the job when you promote people in that rank who didn't put in the work for it. Okay, so it's from Chief Herbert when he was on the 10-foot tavern. So I'll show that before the show's over today.
Yeah, the other thing, and for those of you guys that don't know, last night was the last guest episode of the 10-4 Tavern. They're going to be sunsetting the show. We'll let them tell you guys on this week coming. they're just they just got too busy in their own personal lives that they're not going to be able to do it. And we support them, so we're going to miss the 10-4 Tavern on Tuesday night. So I don't know that we'll be able to fill the hole that they're going to leave, but we'll certainly try. But yeah, so shout out to Tom Joyce and Pete Foselli, two powerhouses in the law enforcement world, and we're glad that they teamed up with us, and they came on the platform, and they were able to get their stories and get their guests on. So yeah, I think we're gonna miss them. So I think that's gonna be a big blow to the network. But everybody, things come up. Like, what are you gonna do? Like we said, this is kind of like a feudal enterprise at this point. So it's kind of hard. They both have real heavy, big time jobs that require a lot of travel. As you guys know, you're always constantly seeing them on the road and stuff. So yeah, we're definitely gonna miss them. Obviously, they'll still be part of the network in some manner, beyond some time here and there. But yeah, no, I wish them all the best in the future and all the best luck. So we'll let them tell you. But they did put out a message yesterday, last night after the show, saying that they were going to sunset it. So sad, but all good things come to an end. And I wish them luck in the future. And I thank them for really coming on here, because I think they helped solidify the Finest Unfiltered as a legitimate source of information in law enforcement, as I do think the executive perspective does as well, and continues to do. So, but I mean, that's a bit of sad news too, right? Like, I kind of liked it. I like this all as one network, but I don't believe that they're starting another podcast or anything like that. They're just, like I said, they're just too busy,
Yeah, sorry about that. There are a lot of stories that need to be told, otherwise they'll be lost to the pages of history. Like I mentioned early in the show, like Detective Randy Jurgensson. Again, that guy seemed to be at the heart of a lot of New York history, and it's stories that are going to be lost to the pages of history, And same thing with the 10-4 Tavern. There are a lot of older guys who have retired, who've the city's moved on, and we're no longer a city that it was in the 90s and the 80s and 70s. And there are a lot of guys who have that knowledge that once they leave this earth, these stories are going to be gone, and the history of the job is going to be done. There's a discussion here about the NYPD and why we should do a better job of memorializing the careers of these guys somehow. I don't know how you go about doing it, but the NYPD has a lot of legends that their experience and what they went through in their career needs to be memorialized somehow. And I wish the NYPD as an institution would do a better job of doing that. Again, I don't have the answer how would they'd go about it, but I just think we do need to do a better job of it. Just for the sake of for the institution.
Well, we're doing it here. Listen.
True.
The NYPD's got two big problems right now, and they're not focused on fixing that institution. They're actually, if you look at everything they've done, they've actually weakened the institution further.
Good point.
And it's really bad. Like they really set themselves up for failure in the future, and they're touting them as successes. And I think there's a lot of stuff that needs to come out, and I think that we do a great job of memorializing people and legends, and maybe we don't do enough of it. But we'll try going forward as we continue to grow. That's definitely something we're going to go down. We're going to go down there. Obviously, the book I'm working on, that's one. That's the start. I don't know how many books I'll be able to do in my lifetime before I'm not here any longer, but I'd like to go through a lot of that stuff, and I think you will see. I mean, the play yesterday really opened my eyes to a lot of stuff where I'm like, I think there really is whether you like cops or you don't like cops, it's really irrelevant to me how you feel about the NYPD. They're a part of society. They're a part of pop culture. They're a part of culture in every era. And I think there have been pivotal figures in the NYPD throughout all of those eras. Doesn't matter what time period we're talking about. If we're talking about 1894, we're talking about early 1900s, we're talking about the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. There have been real pivotal people there. And there have been some people that maybe you don't know about. Like, right, they're not out there in the media and you don't know those names. And I think we do a real good job at like getting those guys on to tell their story. And I wish more of them would be apt to tell their stories too, just for future generations, just for when they're not here. Because those stories will be lost to history, you know, like the Randy Jurgensson one, like, you know, not everybody's going to have a career like Randy Jurgensson. The guy was in literally the middle of everything like during that time period. It was like, it's just insane. How much stuff he was in the middle of, you know, that they made the movie Cruising. Somebody mentioned here, I think it was Nolan. Pacino plays Jurgensson. That was Jurgensson's character. That's who he was. He was playing Detective Jurgensson. That was the same time as the Lenny Bruce arrest, and that came right on the heels of the French Connection, like of that whole big bust that he made. You know, that whole huge heroin bust. So I think, you know, it's not going to be the NYPD. It's going to be us. You see what they put out when they put out stuff, and it's just not there because they can't ever tell the truth. They can't ever tell the truth. There's always some type of narrative that needs to be pushed for whatever administration it is, and I don't think that's ever going to change regardless of who comes into power. So I think you know, Cobbs is saying, John, I hear you, but these allegations, they are entitled to presumption of innocence. Let's remember that. Let the facts come out and let's see where it goes. That said, the allegations are very bad. So look, like I said, I would be less harsh on them if it wasn't so much of it, dude. It's like it's constant, man. And look, there's a lot of things that I know, and there's a lot of people that I talk to that I don't say. You know, so I know a lot more than anything I ever put out. And you know, it's horrendous, dude. But even if I didn't know a lot of things, that happened, that I know happened for a fact, and I know words that were said, and I know conversations that were had, and I know threats that were made, and all of these things, even if I didn't know all of those things, you know, and just from what came out in the media, just from what a lot of people have stated about this administration, I mean, you have to be an idiot to think that there's not teeth to all these allegations. You know, when I was a rookie cop, I'll never forget it. In the 120, for some reason, everybody in Impact started telling everybody, take it in the face, right? One of the older guys used to say, take it in the face, you know, take it in the face like a good girl, right? And it was funny, you know. But what happened is all the kids in my Impact class, they started writing summonses. And they started, as they would give somebody summonses, they tell them, yeah, here, take it in the face. And they'd give them the summons, right? Pre-body camera, all this stuff. So CO comes in one day. I forget the guy's name. And he goes, look, I have about 10 CCRB complaints with somebody saying that they were issued a summons. And a cop said, take it in the face. He's like, and you guys are all entitled to due process. You're all entitled to due process. And, you know, he goes, but if you're going to fucking sit here and tell me that 10 different allegations came out about 10 different cops and they all got the same fucking allegation and nobody knows each other and they're all different neighborhoods all over the city and it's all different demographics, I know for a fact it's happening. So cut the fucking shit out right now. You know, and it's the same thing here. It's the same thing here. It's the same MO. It's the same story. It's the same players. It's the same people. It's the same connections. I've said it over and over again. This was Tammany Hall 2.0. And I'll be honest, I really thought that anyone that came in was going to change the game. I'm talking about mayor-wise at the top now, because I thought that Tish probably had the best opportunity to do it just because she was a billionaire. But I think she likes the job just way too much to even risk losing it. And so I figured that another mayor, whoever came in, would really like try to get rid of the corruption at the top of the NYPD, and I think, and it's coming out of City Hall as well too, because I do believe that most of the corruption always stems from City Hall. If you look at all these corruption investigations, they're all heavily tied to City Hall mayor's office, right? They all come through. It's everybody that's close to the king, right? The fish stinks from the head, and I think when you look at what Mondani's doing right now, I could just call him Eric Adams Jr. Might not be as stupid, might not be as illiterate, might not be as like incompetent or appear as incompetent, excuse me, because I do believe that watching him now, I'm like, you're not trying to clean the city up. You're protecting the grift. There's corruption right under your nose. You're not looking for government efficiency. You're pushing further government inefficiency. You're not trying to stop the corruption. You're trying to control the corruption. And I'm gonna say right now that I'm not gonna give anybody a pass. I'm gonna give them. I think that they're entitled to less due process than Mullen Bethel was entitled to, and he wasn't given fucking any, because it's clear as day what happened. Their asses should have been thrown out of the NYPD a long time ago, and a lot of other people that are still sitting in the NYPD should be fucking gone right now. And anybody with a brain that stepped into any position, I don't care if it's law enforcement, I don't care if it's a business model, I don't care what it is, to keep people around, knowing the things they did on top of the allegations that are festering around them. Because you got to remember, this isn't just allegations. This is, we know what happened, proven what happened, and now allegations on top of that that just back up everything that's been being said for the last 4 years. Like, you got to be gone. Got to be gone. It's culture of corruption.
Yeah, I mean, not for nothing. How many times are we going to hear those allegations come up? And again, if you put two and two together from from what we've heard from other people, we've heard from Epps and again Commissioner Donlan's own lawsuit. You put two and two together, there's a lot of smoke over there, So yeah, you're innocent until proven guilty, right? These are only allegations, but when you look at the Maddrey clique, the Eric Adams cronies, there's a lot of smoke there, right? How many times do these same guys get in trouble? For how many times have we seen inappropriate behavior from these guys, right? Yeah, so there's just too much smoke there for us to for I think anyone with a sliver of common sense to dismiss. Yeah. But slight tangent here, right? Even if you don't care about police work or any of that, right? It's just fascinating just how much influence Randy had, in the entertainment industry, in terms of like some of the greatest films of the 70s and a few in the 80s and 90s too. He had a hand in. It's just very I think he's very prolific, and just to go back to the 1970s crime cinema, he played a role. I mean, he technically consulted on the 7-Ups too, and Fort Apache. And for you older guys out there, these movies. These movies are like, it doesn't get any more famous than these movies about like the NYPD of those times. Yeah. So I just thought that.
Don't forget that he was in the Korean War, and he was at the Battle of Pork Chop Hill too. Like it's insane, dude. Like we were talking about his son, his son or his son-in-law, yesterday. We were just talking about it. Like I was like, it's unbelievable, dude. It's unbelievable that he was just in the middle of everything around that time period.
Yeah, man. Talk about a life well lived. Jeez, man.
And he's still going, and he's still going. And him, he was like, and he kind of pushed back at the play a little bit because he's like, look, this was a community complaint. We didn't just go there. And then the attorney kind of got riled up about it, like saying, well, how do you know it didn't just come from the DA's office or the Catholic Church at that time? And and they were going back and forth, and I was like, wow. I was like, this still awesome. And the funniest thing, I think one of the other funny things I think he said was, he goes, well, if I got asked to do it again, I'd do it. Everybody was booing him last night. I was like, yes, that is awesome. And I knew what he meant. I knew what he meant, because I said it all the time. I was getting beat up a lot around the enforcement of the mandates when it came to businesses that were telling people to leave. I'm like, hey, look, if a business tells you to leave, they have the right to tell you to leave. They have the right not to serve you. They have the right not to serve you. If you don't leave when you're asked to leave, they could trespass you. So I don't eat at those places anymore. But if I'm a cop today, and I said it at the height of the mandate and people wanted to kill me, like I said, if I'm a cop today and you send me to a establishment that's telling me they don't want you in there, whether I agree with them or not, I'm going to lock you up. And I took a lot of heat from that, from the medical freedom movement and a lot of stuff, but it is what it is. So I totally get what Jurgensson was saying there. And, I think he still defends the police department. And he was a guy that was forced out of the police department early too. So,
Yeah.
He doesn't have his full pension either.
It's true. JK, yes. French Connection. Man, there's such fantastic movies. French Connection is one of my top 10 films. That chase scene is just fantastic, and the director William Friedkin is like one of the greatest directors ever. But this guy has a hell of a life lived, man. Yeah, I just can't. I only found out about I read Circle of Six years ago. But it had kind of faded in my memory. But when he came back on the show and John interviewed him, and I realized again just how much of a legend he was, and just hearing his connections to George Carlin and all of that history yesterday it's just mind blowing, man. Yeah. But again, I wish the job would do better about recognizing. I mean, although they did finally recognize Randy Jurgensson a couple of years ago on the Caban, but I just think they need to do a better job of memorializing the careers of these legends. Yeah. So just a slight tangent there, guys.
Yeah, I don't think they're ever going to do that, by the way. And if they did, they'd be paying homage to this podcast weekly. So I just want to throw that out there. So, yeah. All right, peoples. God. All right, it's time for a message from our partners over at Kalshi. The 2026 primaries are taking shape, and you can trade the biggest political races on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade major primary election outcomes and the biggest political storylines as they happen. Will Steve Hilton be the winner of the California governor's election? Right now, Hilton is currently trading at 9%, meaning a $25 trade would pay out $250 if he wins the seat of California governor. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code FINEST to get 20 when you trade 20. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
Yeah, KB, legendary chase. 7-Up's had a great chase scene in it too, by the way. And William Friedkin also directed To Live and Die in LA, which was in the 80s. And there's also a fantastic chase scene conducted in LA. Great movies. Let's see some good comments here. Not only was corruption part of the those movies, but those movies also capture the decade. It capture like the atmosphere and like what was happening there. If you want to if you want to take a look at certain times in the history of New York City, you watch these films and they really capture New York City as they were in the 70s. As you know, I'm saying this, obviously I didn't grow up in the 70s, but I've watched a lot of documentaries about that period, and those movies really do capture the spirit of all that was happening in the city at that time, good and bad. So
Yeah, Chronicles goes back on the Donlin suit. So there were actually two lawsuits, Chronicles. So one of the lawsuits where he was suing for change to the department, it wasn't even a monetary lawsuit. He was actually calling for oversight into the department. That case was dismissed, and the judge was saying that the police commissioner can't claim whistleblower status, which is ridiculous. Like, he reported corruption to his boss because he had nothing. He couldn't remove people because he was being boxed out of the New York City Police Department, and the boss did absolutely nothing about it. So that's what the judge claimed. That case is being appealed. There's another lawsuit, though. The lawsuit, which that 100% he's going to win on, is the lawsuit where the defamation lawsuit, where Tarik Sheppard and Eric Adams go out on the news and tell everybody that Donlin has cognitive issues, and that's why they fired him and they got rid of him. And that's not true at all. The man has no cognitive issues at all. It was a complete defamation suit. So that one never got thrown out. And I guarantee you, we might not hear about it, but I guarantee you the city of New York's going to probably already looking to see how much they could settle with him for. Because that was a ridiculous. I couldn't even believe when they said that. So you're saying the guy you hired has cognitive issues? You hired him to be the police commissioner 2 months ago, and now you're just coming to figure out that he has cognitive issues? And so he's 100%. That lawsuit didn't go anywhere. The other lawsuit, however, is being appealed. So, yeah, it was definitely dismissed, but it wasn't dismissed on strong grounds, in my opinion. And I think it'll be overturned on appeal. And that wasn't even for monetary gain. That was calling for oversight of the New York City Police Department. And I think, we called for that originally after Caban was ousted. And I gotta say, I don't know who they would put in charge of it, but there should be a commission put together, and it should be bigger than the Mullen Commission. There should be looking at all of this. I mean, even if it, like, you look at the allegation that's tied to Frank Carone, right? And now I'm not hearing anything that the cops were tied in any way with this, although I think some people were friendly with these businessmen in this allegation. So I'm not this is obviously high level, going from the mayor's office. Guy owns a hotel. He wants a migrant contract, allegedly pays $100,000 for it, gets the migrant contract worth $100 million. If you look at it from that angle, where the corruption was forming at the top, it was just the corruption was having a trickle down effect down to the upper echelon of the NYPD and down on the upper echelon of other city agencies. So it was basically the city of New York, like I said, for 4 years, was being run as a criminal enterprise. And I don't think anyone denies this. And it's being run as a criminal enterprise, and you have the largest municipal police force in the world who no longer knows anything about corruption, can't spot public corruption, won't arrest anybody because of it, and can't even weed the corruption out of their own department. And it really is it's something for the ages what happened here. I think when you look at Tom Donlin, when we look back in 20 years on Tom Donlin, his short term in the police department, you're gonna look at him in a positive light because he didn't go along with it, and he actually told the truth about what was happening, and he came out and he pushed back about it. Right. And he wasn't afraid to go out and say exactly what was occurring during that time. And I think as time goes on, you're going to see that a lot of the things he was talking about are just going to get solidified and proven, even though you all know what happened. Right. That's just and it just continues to happen. He just continues to be proven correct the same way that this platform just continues to be proven correct with all of the stuff that we said was going on. Right? We were called liars. We were called racist. We were told we were spreading misinformation. We were told all these things. And yet, if you go back during those times to those episodes, literally everything we said came to fruition months, sometimes years later. And it was obvious as shit. You could just look at it. I mean, just look at what happened with Miranda too, the sheriff of New York. I mean, I watched that city council hearing like I always do, and I could not believe his answer to that question. I started posting online. He freaks out. He calls DOI. I start posting like this guy saying that they don't confiscate money, but he's in news. He's on the news confiscating money and time after time. And then there is actually money that city council has where that they put into the fund, they put into their bank account, and he's saying that they don't take any money for forfeiture. And then miraculously gets freaked out after I continuously blast him online, calls DOI and says that there's money in the safe unaccounted for, $100,000, and he's not removed immediately. Even if it was innocent, he should have been sidelined immediately until that investigation was over. Even if it was innocent. But I mean, and you talk to anybody about that, even after that occurred, he was still in charge. You walk in his office, there was stuff that should have been vouchered just laying around. Bricks of marijuana everywhere. Not properly vouchered, not properly stored, not properly cared for. Right? The sheriffs were complaining about it. I mean, anybody that went in that office at that time was like, what is happening here? This does not look like this is being run on the up and up. This looks like you're going into a warehouse with stolen goods. So, I mean, yeah. Everybody innocent until proven guilty? Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, Boston Bob. I saw that too. Boston Bob mentioned this a couple times in the chat. The USPS director, that's the post office. They've announced that they've suspended pension contributions in order to preserve their cash flow. And how's this relevant to us? Well, we were all also called conspiracists when we talked about how the city was broke years ago. And again, keep in mind, Mamdani right now is trying to push pretty much the same thing for the job. They want to suspend for the unions. They want to suspend pension contributions in order to keep the city funded right now. And by the way, we talked about it last episode of talk of the city running into cash flow problems by November, and part of that is due to they're going to blow. Well, we're assuming, and the paper alluded to also that due to things like the NYPD overtime budget being again getting blown out of the water potentially over the summer due to all these events like the Knicks celebratory riots of last week and the parade, and now you have the World Cup, and you have all these events, right? So the city is headed to a cash crunch in November. And again, Mamdani has said it numerous times that he's looking to save $1.8 billion by deferring your pension contributions. So, yeah, I saw this, and I thought as well, same thing as I'm assuming you did, Boston Bob, that this is the same road that we're headed to right now. So.
No big deal, Mo. So the DEA had put a statement out, Scott Monroe. So Scott, this is your segment. So guys, for all you guys that are in here to taking notes, get your pens ready, or hit the record button. So this is for Scott Monroe. So Scott had put a statement out that we're not going to put a statement out until there's an official request from the mayor of New York City about the delayment of the pension funds, because we've never been approached by the mayor's office. So let's talk reality now, Scott. It's a good play on words, but it's just not accurate. It's not actually accurate in reality. So what happened is the mayor of New York told everybody that he was in talks with all of the municipal labor unions, and that you were all going to go ahead with delaying the pension payments. And you were just coming up with the language on how you were going to sell it to us plebes. Right? That's what Madani said. So it's already being publicly reported that he's having these conversations with you. So whether he officially sent you a request, or you or one of your trustees or anything happened backdoor, either with the mayor himself or any representative of the mayor, that is an official conversation. So you could try to be a fucking sneak and play on your words all you like. But ultimately, we know how that's going to turn out, isn't it? Right? So, I mean, your members might be fucking stupid, but we're not. So you want to sell people a bag of fucking garbage? Go right ahead, but I'm not going to fucking buy it, because he's publicly saying that he's in talks with you and that you're ready to go ahead, and you and Lou and Chris won't say a fucking word. And Pat and Vinny, on the other hand, are pushing you guys out in the limelight, and then they're talking about, oh, we want raises, we want this, we want that, meaning that, oh, here's our bargaining chip, allowing them to fucking weaken our pension fund. So I'm not stupid. We're not stupid on this platform. A lot of other people don't listen to the shit you say. We listen. We listen. So for any of that, we're like, yeah, nah, don't worry about it. Don't listen to those guys, Mo. Spreading misinformation, Mo. I don't care what those guys say, Mo. Spreading misinformation. Spreading misinformation? How about the misinformation that you're actually against this fucking plan? How about the misinformation that you actually said that you wouldn't vote for it, or you said you would vote for it, and say why? You won't do that, right? Because we all know what's going to happen. Everybody on here knows what's going to happen. Every member of every union knows what's going to happen. They're going to fucking sell us out, and it's going to be all your fucking fault because nobody said anything. It's going to be every single fucking person who said nothing, or who said that we spread misinformation. And like I said, I'm not going to give two fucks when it happens, because I already said it. I put myself out there. Everybody got to deal with all the bullshit, all the threats, all the other stuff I got to deal with because of that, all the fucking smearing of my name and all this other garbage out there. And at the end of the day, what's going to happen once again? That's been happening for fucking 4 years. What's going to happen? I'm going to be proven right a fucking again.
Yeah, we most definitely will. And I see your comments, John Billy. This is the first time I'm seeing you on this podcast.
He's always on here calling
You
us
seen him before?
pigs and everything else. He's kind of fucking.
Yeah, but we still appreciate your comments here. But John, John Billy, you think pensions are socialism, huh? Well, let me ask you a question. If you look at the free market, right? Let's look at the free market. How are you going to get people willing in a free society? You need police, because again, it's a free society, and you have certain freedoms, and people, when you have these freedoms, there are people out there who are going to take advantage of these freedoms, right? Take advantage of these freedoms for their own self-interest and benefit, right? You're going to need police, right? You're going to need police in order to help maintain our freedom for everybody, while being able to still get those people who take advantage of those freedoms to try and benefit themselves, right? So how would you do that in a free market without pensions? If in a free market, young kids have the ability to get other jobs that are going to pay a lot more, have a lot of other much better benefits, how are you going to get the most competent people to be able to be the police of society, to be law enforcement in society without a pension? Okay. I mean, do you really want people who have half a brain, who don't know how to write reports, don't know how to conduct an investigation, don't know how to speak to people? Do you want those people to be policing you? Do you want to arm those people with a gun, right, and other tools that could harm you, right, if not used properly, if not used according to proper training and as they were instructed to. Do you want to equip people who are underqualified for that job with these tools? Okay? No, you don't, right? You don't. So again, how are you going to get in a free market society? How are you going to get the most qualified people to become cops if you don't have something like a pension system for them? I don't think you'll get those people. Okay. I think do you want to live in like a third world society where the cops, you know, the cops are corrupt. They're a lot of times they're inadequate. Okay. Is that what you really want? Protecting you? So something to think about. I see a lot of people. There are a lot of people on the left, a lot of cop haters who like saying that oh, you talk about socialism, but your pension is socialism. No, no, it's not, dummy. Okay, no, it's not. Okay, and the same people who criticize police when they make mistakes now tell you that or now allude to you shouldn't be able to have a pension. Well, do you want inadequate police or not? Okay, you're complaining about inadequate police and terrible police services, right? But at the same time, you're saying now we shouldn't have pensions for the police. Well, which one is it? Which one is it? You want inadequate cops, or do you want the best, most well-trained, most qualified people to become cops? It's just it's stupid, guy. It's stupid. Okay, you need a better argument about this if you're really going to tell me that pension is socialism.
I wouldn't even ever acknowledge Billy ever because I don't. And the argument that pension funds are socialism is the same argument that a bank account is socialism. If I put money into a savings account and I have it and I divvy it out over time, socialism? Like, what are you talking about? It makes no sense. It's actually a free market. It's actually a free market financial product is exactly what it is. They sell it. You could go on Fidelity and buy one right now. It's called an annuity. That's what it is. So
But,
yeah. I don't pay attention to that clown. He's
I wouldn't have commented about it if not for me having seen that elsewhere by a lot of far left people online. That a lot of them, whenever we mention about police pensions, I see the comments on it all the time. They come up about
well,
that.
but the
They
thing
hate it.
is, like, the only reason that it's relevant to the conversation is because this is who's going to be voting. This is who's going to be voting to take your
Exactly.
pension away after the fucking belly's up because your union presidents are a bunch of morons and they're like, oh yeah, it didn't work anywhere else, but it's going to work here because we're going to get raises, Mo. And I got this coalition together with all the other police unions that I'm going to be in charge of. And we're going to fight back against Mondani's policies, but we're going to allow them access to your pension fund so they can continue to misuse it and all the billions could go out the door in New York City and all the corruption can continue. We got to help fund the corruption. I say give it to Mondani. Give all these corrupt fucking cops pensions to Mondani. Leave our pensions alone. That's what I say. Take their fucking pensions. Give it to Mondani. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm like, but that's going to be the argument. And that's what people aren't realizing is like, nobody's going to take my pension, Mo. Yeah. Nobody was going to force you to put something in your body either. Nobody was going to force your wife to put something in her body. Nobody was going to force your kid to put something in her body. And what happened? What happened? You all folded like little girls. So don't sit there and tell me that no one's going to take your pension. They'll take your pension and you're not going to do a fucking thing about it. You're going to be like, what are we going to do? What am I going to do? That's what's going to happen. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Every city and state that's ever done this has weakened that pension fund, and people have lost benefits altogether or had diminished benefits. That's exactly what's going to happen to us if you allow them access to your pension funds, and you're all going to take it in the face, right? And that's what it is. So I don't want to hear shit about any of this, but I agree with you. That's going to be the argument. That's going to be who's voting. And since we don't really have much of a say as cops anymore in the city of how I've been telling you this for years. For years, the politicians on both sides would pander to the police force for tour changes, for scheduling, for overtime, for all these things. They no longer do it because they don't have to do it because none of you guys live in the city. And even if you do live in the city, you're apathetic and you don't go out to the polls. So they don't care. They don't have to give you anything. They don't pander to you. They pander to illegals.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you're going to protect your pensions? Come on. You gotta, yeah, coalition out in Hapog, Long Island. Yeah, all right, Mo. Okay, Hapog, Long Island. They're supporting the Republican candidates, and in the city of New York, they're allowing socialists to get access to your pensions. And they're not saying a word. They didn't say a word about any of this corruption. They didn't say a word about any of the cronyism, the nepotism. And now, oh yeah, we're not going to say anything until we get an official statement. You already got your official statement, and we already got your official answer. You're fucking tuck-tailing and running, and you're going to give Mondani access to the pension fund. We got it.
Yeah. John is spot on. It's these same people who are going to be voting to get rid of your pensions. Okay. And again, Billy, you got to pick an argument, bro. You want qualified cops. You want more incompetence. You want more accidental discharges. You want more wrongful arrests or whatnot. More incompetent policing. Is that what you want, or do you want the best qualified candidates to take that job? Because if you want the best workers, you're gonna have to pay, bro. That's how a free market works. Okay. And so you can't have it both ways. And if you want to continue with that argument, what's going to keep happening, like you're seeing in New York City, is and I've said this before, like the people who are the most qualified people, the most competent people will leave. Okay, they will leave to where the free market will reward them their competency more, and you'll get a greater brain drain from New York City, and you'll see more incompetence in city government, in the policing, in everything. Okay, you'll live in a shithole while the rest of us smart, competent people will go live where, we want the best cops, we want the best politicians, we want the best government administrators. So if you want to live in a corrupt, incompetent shithole, then enjoy that. Okay.
Total joke, bro. Total joke. So I just, again, it's a sad state of affairs. What's happening. So yeah, all these guys are entitled to due process, but I think they're all dirty as hell. That's just my opinion. So, and I'm not gonna be surprised at all. I'm not gonna be surprised at all by any of it. Oh man, I got two up here.
Yeah. Spot on, Danny. I'm giving out some spot ons before we close out today. So Danny, you get it. Dan the man, you're getting one.
Yeah. What the hell is happening here? Sorry, my X is messing up. I was trying to bring up who we're gonna allow access to our pension funds. Here we go. Okay, wrong screen. So this was a guy on Mondani's transition team, Dr. Alex Vitale. So, he was part of the public safety team. So if your union presidents sign off when they do, I think all of them, honestly, when they sign off and allow Mondani access to your pension fund, it's going to be for people like this and ideas like this where your money's going to go. Great investments. You ready? Here we go.
So I do think that we probably should focus on new language about invest in communities, not in policing, these kinds of things, rather than trying to defend language that we were outmaneuvered around.
I want to play you a clip from Daria Lisa's, who's running in New York's 13th district, an interview that she did recently where she was asked to defend her past tweets about defund, and get your take on her version of the answer.
I really think that when in a time where we are spending more money than we have ever spent on policing, in a time where policing is more militarized than it has ever been, the fact that we are still asking the question, do we feel safe, is very telling. And as someone who studies this question of safety, in my research, this question of criminality, I am someone who has looked for answers that actually bring real safety to our communities, and that is funding the programs that are actually correlated with an increased sense of safety and actual safety in our communities. And that is work that I am proud that I will continue to advocate for. I know that we will not get rid of police overnight. That was never the goal. But the goal is to make sure that we get to a place as a society where we do feel safe.
That to me is a version of the dream, because she gets the question about defund and she actually takes the time to explain what is meant instead of having this knee-jerk reaction. No, I never meant it. I mean, what do you think of it?
Well, I'm smiling because I met with them.
Okay.
You know, so
This has your fingerprints all over it.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, because I went to an early event where her message was a little bit different, slightly, not her underlying views, but the messaging was a little different. And the focus was on like, well, we need to reduce poverty. We need to provide certain, basic services to people. And I said, I don't think that's adequate. That it falls into the same sort of trap of not being the public safety candidate and saying, actually, I'm the person who knows what we actually need to do. And so I actually connected them with some service providers up in Harlem. And I said, these are the people who we need to be providing public safety in that part of New York City. And so she would talk, she alluded to, there are programs here. And I'm like, that's the language that we need.
So this is how we're going to abolish the police. We're not going to say defund anymore. We're going to paint ourselves as the public safety candidate. And when, we're not saying that we're immediately going to abolish the police, but we're going to get there eventually. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that through funding these programs. Now, we need to move away from defunding the police because it's not popular. So what we need to do is move towards defunding their pensions and using that money for programs to ultimately abolish them. And your stupid fucking union presidents are going to do it for a raise. I don't know. If anybody heard anything different, let me know. If anybody thinks I'm saying anything that's inaccurate or not accurate, or I haven't analyzed any of these situations correctly, let me know. Have a union president come out. They're welcome to come on here and talk. Don't they get paid very significant salaries, close to $400,000 a year? They can't come on and defend their positions. They can't come on and speak up for their members. They can't come on and say we're wrong. This is where your pension money is going to go, because they can't go around the defunding because they lost that argument. So they need to clean it up and dress it up. But hey, where's our money ultimately going? To these evidence-based programs that they couldn't explain to you if you tried any way, shape, or form. Alex Vitale won't come on here and talk about these programs. Why not? He's a professor. He's much more highly educated than we are. Who are we? We're just dumb pigs grifting off the system, right? So if anybody thinks we're mistaken here, play this clip over again in 10 years when they take your pension and tell me we weren't exactly right, when the police department is in a worse state than it is now. It's basically being put together with Band-Aids right now. This is what they're trying to do. This is what they're seeking. And instead of saying defunding you from the actual budget, they're going to do it. They're going to have you fund these programs another way. And ultimately, these programs are being used to abolish you totally, which will upend our entire pension system and will put us all in the doghouse. So,
yeah. They said it many times. They want to do things with the the contributions, right? The unfunded liabilities, and they want to do things with the part of your, the already funded portions. Okay, they want to take that part and put it into housing. Okay, and it's been said by many candidates on that, except Curtis Lewa. But Curtis wasn't the guy who won. So that hit is coming multiple ways. And by the way, I said before, something that isn't being talked about now is the amount of losses already in your pension due to private credit and private equity, because that market is a crap show right now. So they're coming after your pension, from multiple angles. And again, your unions are silent about it. Okay. And that's none of this is a coincidence why they're silent about it. Okay. Because behind the scenes, all of them are already talking. They're just, like John said, they're just working on the language that they're going to sell it all to you, working on how they're going to, how they're going to manage perception when news actually hits.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's it. This is, the young and the clueless. The media thing is going to be the entire media spin is going to be the socialists have taken over. This was a socialist sweep of New York. And I'm just sitting there laughing and I'm saying, no, this is just the same New York it was 10 years ago. This is just the same voter base that it was 10 years ago. Transplant New Yorkers, young, energetic voters. They go out and vote in nearly every single election, and they do not outweigh or outnumber the majority of people in New York City who do not support these policies. The difference between them is they understand the civics process in New York City. They understand the political process. They vote in every election. They get out on the streets and they campaign. They run their candidates and they fight for their candidates, where moderates, Republicans and conservatives do not. So this is the Democratic Party. This is their base. The elderly base that votes in New York City is highly uninformed. Like I said, this is the last generation that's going to watch traditional media like the Fox News and the Newsmax. And you could ask them anything about national politics and they'll tell you, but they won't know a damn thing about what's happening in New York City locally. And so this is the problem, and all the people that complain about it don't vote. They don't say anything. They don't get involved. They don't help candidates. They don't donate to grassroots candidates. They don't door knock for grassroots candidates. They don't make calls for them. They don't even tell anybody about them. And so we're just an apathetic, low-informed, overwhelming, I won't even say silent majority. I'll say dumb majority, cheapest majority. And so I do think that the DSA is taking over, and I think they will make a run at the governor's seat, and I think they will make a run for the White House as well. And I think New York will be a big proponent in that, because New Yorkers are just apathetic and uneducated when it comes to the political process. And I'll say it. I think the GOP, and I think that the GOP and I think that the Conservative Party of New York really need to be completely overhauled. I think it's obvious they're not putting out good products. They're not identifying good candidates to run. They're not running campaigns. They're not running new campaigns. They're not out there on social media. They're not out there on the ground. And until the political process of this changes, absolutely nothing's going to change in New York City. Nothing's going to change in the state. Nothing's going to change in the NYPD, because the NYPD is just an arm of the political party. That's it.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the same people who are often silent about, like, they'll be vocal about anytime there's a incident that goes sideways, right? Yet they're silent on like the cronyism in the department and things like like what we talked about this show, the pay for promotions scandal, right? The allegations. They're silent on that, but they're vocal whenever we have a sideways incident where somebody gets hurt. And these same people are the people who, again, don't want you to have a pension, right? So to me, it's either you're, like in the case of John Billy, he's either so wealthy that he's detached from reality and lives in a gated community where, interestingly enough, you pay a ton of money for your own private security, right? You're either so wealthy that you're detached from reality, or these people are like, they're comfortable living in substandard. Yeah, exactly. And a shithole, with inadequate government services. You take the subway, for instance, take the subway. The state of the subway should get everybody pissed off. Thank God. I when I went into Manhattan yesterday, I took the LIRR, right? And I was on the LIRR. I got there in like 30 minutes. I'm like, man, thank God I don't have to take the regular subway. Last time I took it and I had to transfer. I'm in there at Atlantic. I think it was either Borough Hall or Atlantic, and I was looking at the walls. I'm like, man, this place looks like a freaking third world subway. And I've taken subways in like 3 different continents, and this was back in the early 2000s, the latter half of the early 2000s, and it was like back then I realized we live in a third world, and now it's even worse because the conditions in our subway have deteriorated. So the people that fail to have a proper a well thought out argument, okay, either you want competency or you don't, right? These people are either so wealthy that they these arguments don't matter to them, because again they have better living conditions, better quality of life, better government, better, things are just more well run because there's less people, and everybody is wealthy. So even if government can't provide the service, they, they have the money to get those services themselves, like in the case of security, or they're happy to live in the filth and live a substandard life of poor and inadequate services and filth all around them.
Yeah, so I'm just going to address Nan and John Billy real quick. So if you want to say that policing is a form of socialism because it's a taxpayer-funded good, I'll agree with you. But, however, cops are taking the initiative using that money that they're paid by the city and state, and they're funding their own pension system. So that is not, the pension system is a financial product. It's not a form of socialism. If you want to say policing is, that's fine. So is the roadways. So is the MTA. So is all of these other things. Forms of socialism, right? There's like a little capitalist socialist form there, but not the pension system. Cobbs, 3506. John, with all due respect, Cobbs, you don't have to say with all due respect. You can tell me to go fuck myself. It's fine. The fund earns billions on its investments. Look up the police pension fund. When did I say that it didn't? And so if we're so wealthy that we want to give, if the pension fund's doing so well and we want to give the money, we want to give a few billion to Mandani, give it to him. Why are you going to allow him to stop making pension payments to the pension fund, which is going to stop the interest you're going to earn on that money? Why are we going to do that? If you're not concerned with it, Cobbs, you should just come out publicly and say it. Your union president should just come out and say, no, this isn't going to harm the pension. They have a fiduciary duty to us. If it's not going to harm the pension and you're not worried about it and your union presidents aren't worried about it, and I'm a fucking idiot because I never looked up the police pension fund. I don't know what we have in there. I have no idea that it earns money. Oh my God, it earns money. I never knew that. If I'm fucking wrong, I mean, it's clear as day. You could come on here and make me look like an idiot. You could come on here and tell us where we're wrong. You could write a fancy little letter or have one of your little cronies write you a fancy little AI narrated letter and put out there exactly why I'm wrong. Exactly why this won't weaken our pension fund. Exactly why doing so here for the New York Police and Pension Fund is going to be so different than it is in every other city and state that it's not going to affect its members down the road. But you know why they won't do that, Cobbs? And you know why you're from a fake name? I'll tell you why. Because history is going to prove us correct, and you're going to have a name and a face behind the lack of fiduciary duty that will actually weaken our fund. That's why. Yeah, the fund earns millions, and it'll continue to earn millions if we're smart with what we do. If we allow corruption to continue in the pension fund and we allow people to get these big pensions that they never worked for the police department, or maybe they did 10 years ago, but they were deputy commissioner in a different agency, but they kept themselves on the books as a chief of internal affairs, and then took the money that they never earned in the police department and roll it into our pension fund and then get a $30,000 a month pension, guess what? Your pension's not going to be there for long. You're never going to be able to keep up with all of it. If you're going to stop payments going into the pension fund and you're going to stop the interest that's accruing, now we're reliant solely on the fund earning. What if the market takes a downturn? What happens then? Where's the money that they owe us already? How much does the city of New York owe the pension fund already? Do you know? We spoke about it, right? So I it's all of these apologists that claim to support the police, and they claim to support the benefits, and they claim to support the fund and the health and welfare of their members, and yet for some reason they see no issue with giving billions of dollars into a systemically corrupt system to individuals who want to abolish you. I'm like, I don't know what else I could say. If we're off base, your union presidents get paid a lot of money. They could come on here. If we're as stupid as they say we are, we're going to give them the floor. They'll expose us in 0.2 seconds, right? Why don't they come on here? Because who's going to really be the ones that get exposed? Right? They're listening right now. You all know they're listening right now. Everybody knows. They're literally telling you that they listen every day. You listen to a podcast every day, but yet you're too cowardly to come on here. And by the way, that goes for the police commissioners too. And that goes, you do every other media hit. You could come on here and make us look like idiots and tell everybody how we don't know what we're talking about. But the fact of the matter is, everybody knows we do know what we're talking about. And everybody knows we're calling out the nonsense that nobody else will call out. So I really, do we know they earns billions? Okay. So give Mondani your money. Give it to Mondani. That should be the push. Give it to Mondani. You give him access to your pension. I'm good. I don't want to invest in violence interventors. I don't want to invest in the Department of Community Safety. I don't want to invest in all of these unproven, non-evidence-based public safety strategies. If you do, publicly say it.
Yeah, Boston Bob, we're not there yet. But, in the 80s, there's a lot of graffiti all over the subway too. But what I'm saying is the infrastructure is falling apart, and our infrastructure is already backwards. When you go to other countries, okay, like take the subway in Spain, take the subway in China, they'll take the subway in Japan, and then come back and take the subway here, and then you'll realize exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, if we're New York City is at one point, I have my doubts on where it's going to be in the future, but most certainly in the last, I would say, maybe close to 100 years, we were the financial hub of the world. Okay, so you can't be the capital of of finance and money in the world and have like a substandard quality of life, substandard conditions. Okay, it's an embarrassment, and that's all I'm saying about that. It looks like a third world down there, especially when you compare it to other places where the subway, it runs on time, is clean, and it doesn't look like it's Venezuela. So what else?
I mean, dude, the roads here are horrendous.
Yeah.
Like you literally you pull in from Jersey and it's like I'm off-roading. It's like
Yeah.
I've been driving pickups for a long time. Probably about over 10 years, and I'm like, you literally need an off-road vehicle in New York City. You need an off-road vehicle more in New York City than you need it in rural areas. It's like it's amazing how bad the roads are, dude. It's like amazing how in decay and despair they are. The bridges, the tunnels, the trains. I mean, it's a shit show, dude. Honestly, and even last night, bro. How many mentally ill drug addicts did we see walking around in a 1 block radius?
Yeah.
I mean,
I walked past Port Authority, and this whole thing smelled like weed, bro, from the outside.
It's like zombies, dude. It's like literal zombies walking around.
Yeah.
Nothing's being done about anything. I mean, quality of life has changed, dude. It has absolutely changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we talked about it last night about New York City. The NYPD should be a destination police department where, instead of you seeing departments like Dallas or Vegas or these other departments coming up here and recruiting our guys, the NYPD, it should be the opposite, to be honest with you. It should be NYPD showing up in Dallas, and then you have a line running out the door of Texas cops who are like, man, I wanna go to the big leagues. You know, no offense, Texas. Okay, no offense, Texas police departments. I'm just pointing out that we're a large police department, and there's a lot of career pathways to choose from in the NYPD. You could be anything from a pilot to being harbor, be a terrorism investigator, be we're a large department, and that's one of the fantastic things about us is that there are a lot of ways to go with your career in the NYPD, and a lot of these smaller departments don't have those avenues that we do. So we should be a destination department where guys are like, you know what, man, I've heard, New York City is a big place, and it's like the big show, and I want to go to the big show. Instead, it's the opposite, where guys here are like, screw this, it's not worth it anymore. I'm gonna go to Dallas. I'm gonna go to Vegas. I'm gonna go to Florida, and that's a shame. And don't think for a second that when people in these states grow up in a great quality of life, they grow up in these areas that they have better schools for their kids, they have better roads, better, it's a less stressful life, right? When they see the conditions in New York City, when they see your subway falling apart, they see your roads falling apart, they see incompetency in government, in the city hall, in the police department, they see scandal after scandal in the NYPD. Don't think for a second when they see that, they're like, nah, I'm good. I'm good here, and that, if you don't think that's a problem, again, that means you're comfortable living in that shithole. Okay. And again, the people who understand what's going on, the people who are competent in New York City, eventually they say to themselves, I no longer want to live in this shithole. And you, the people who are remaining, are going to be the ones who get hurt by it. Because when, God forbid, you need police help, right? You get injured and you need a EMS, right? What's their response times now? Okay. So that's something for you to think about. If you have older folks in New York City, you should be thinking, God forbid something happens to my parents and we got to call EMS. Is EMS going to get there in time? No. So who's getting hurt by this? You comfortable living in a shithole?
Tom says he wasn't even talking to me. He was talking to John Billy. Sorry, I didn't sleep last night. I got home like super late last night. I'm tired as hell. My point stays the same though. not for you. But I've heard that argument a bunch, dude. Like honestly, I've heard that argument from like pretty high up people that we have nothing to worry about because the pension system's so solvent and we have so much money in there. And I'm like, well, I'm still worried. I don't care. Like I respect you. I know you know a lot about it, but I don't care. Like, I'm not comfortable with doing it. Sally Batista, she just put her papers in. Sally, congrats on the retirement. Real warrior, great NYPD sergeant. She said she took her overage and she rolled it into the annuity fund, because she didn't trust leaving it with the city of New York. And it's a shame. It's really a shame, and it's wild, Sally. Sally, when you're officially done, if you want to come on, we'd love to have you on. Hit me up. Hear your story, hear who you are, why you came on the job, all the good stuff. I think I think you're a real pivotal member of the NYPD these last few years, and appreciate all of the love and support. So let us know. But yeah, dude, it's sad. We were talking about it last night. We were talking about how what I was saying is like all these kids in the Midwest, all these kids that are down south, they all want to move here for every other profession, right? They want to move to the city, right? Like kids in Florida, oh, I want to be an accountant. I want to be in finance. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be an attorney. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a dentist. Anything they want to do, where do they want to do it? They want to do it in New York City. And you would think that it would be the same for law enforcement. I mean, look, how many movies, when they talk about movies and law enforcement, when you talk about TV shows, which are the most popular ones? All out of New York City, right? When people think about cops, they think about the NYPD. how aren't we an organization and how aren't we a city that's not attracting these young men who want to go into law enforcement? I mean, our benefits are super competitive. I'm forget about super competitive. Our benefits are unmatched. Our pension fund is unmatched. Our healthcare is unmatched, and a lot of room for improvement in a lot of the healthcare. I'm not going to say that, but it's a lot better than other departments. There's departments that after you retire, you got to get your own healthcare. You got to pay for your own healthcare after that's gone. You know, there's departments they don't get. Maybe they get a little bit more of their pension than you get, but their pension is shit. You know, I don't understand how we can't make it a viable profession where people want to go to, where an institution with leadership that people want to be under. And the reason that we're not there is because of our elected leadership. And it has everything to do with that. It has everything to do with the top at the elected leadership and who they appoint to the NYPD and the autonomy they're given to run the NYPD. The NYPD, in my opinion, is concerned with everything else other than public safety and other than making the institution a better place. And I think all of the corruption scandals that have come out over these last 10 years, 12 years, 13 years, over these last 13 years have proved that. Police executives do not care about bettering the NYPD. They care about furthering their own self for personal gain. And the state of the city and the state of the job is really not on their list anywhere. They could give two shits about it. One dumb idea after the next. So I think competent leadership, you could change it like that, just based upon where we are and the city that we're at. I mean, we was sitting on 42nd Street for 5 minutes outside. I mean, beautiful girl after beautiful girl walking down the block, professionals. Like, you're a young single guy. You want to go into law enforcement. Where else would you want to go? You want to get into the mix of everything that you're going to happen. You want to be a well-rounded police officer. Where else to do that but New York City? I mean, and it's unbelievable, dude. Well, this is like your fourth time, bro.
Yeah, we were out late, bro. Yeah. I'm running on this coffee right now, okay?
And I drove Marlon home too, for all you guys that are wondering. I drove all the way to Queens, so it was like a real date.
Yeah. So yeah, guys. I don't think there's much left to say about that, but again, we really should be we really should be the ones poaching from other departments, not the other way around. And keep in mind, even with those good benefits, there are guys willing to say, you know what, I'd rather accept less benefits because there's a better quality of life. There are better places out there, So I think and even those of you guys who retired and have moved away from New York City, who think, I'm not there anymore. Why do I care? Well, just because you're retired and you moved away from New York City doesn't mean you've distanced yourself from New York City. You're always attached to the city. Why? Because your pension is attached to the city and your healthcare is attached to the city. And where the city goes, those two go as well. So unless you want to work in your 80s or when you're ready to, when you need a walker, unless you're prepared to go stand in Walmart or something, then you really need to participate and pay attention to this and like I always say, call your union and put pressure on them to do their damn jobs. So, but yeah, John is right. That's the one thing that hasn't changed. At least there's a lot of sites in Manhattan, and I do find it's a little more corporate than I like in Manhattan now. There's, again, I said this before, just walking around, I see a lot of lot of the hole in the walls that I like to go to are no longer there. I just find everything is it's just corporate. But with that said, there are a lot of eye candy out there for the young single guys out there. I would definitely, I always loved doing a detail in Manhattan because it's a day off from like Brooklyn North, but you're gonna be really entertained just standing around there and watching the eye candy walk around. You most definitely will you know, have a easy day for that in terms of that anyway.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the super chats. We had about 600 people with us this morning. Appreciate everybody for joining. If you haven't already, make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell wherever you're watching or listening. For those of you that are on audio podcast, do us a favor. Make sure you give us a review, hit the 5-star button. Moves us up in the algorithm, keep pushing us up. We've been growing. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people got a lot of stuff to say about us growing. Obviously, we're getting bigger endorsements, stuff like that, and we appreciate all of it. And that's solely because of the audience. So, you know, we try to bring you guys in as much as we can. Obviously, it's very busy in the chat for those of you on Instagram, on Facebook, X, wherever you're watching or listening. Try to catch a live show if you haven't, and I suggest doing it in YouTube. Our YouTube chat is much more livelier than the rest. We always have a few hundred people in here every morning. You know, for New York's finest return Unfiltered podcast with myself, Eric, and Marlon, we go live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 08:05 every morning. So try to check that out. You know, if you want to interact in the live chat and see who we're always you know, either agreeing with or arguing with. So we appreciate all you guys, even you guys that we don't agree with traditionally or we go back and forth with. So before we go to the super chats, I know we missed a lot of stuff this week, and we know we missed the shooting in Toronto. There's a lot of stuff that happened in New York City, actually, that we didn't talk about either. A lot of viral videos that came out, but we'll try to get back up on those on Monday, and we'll go through those. We're just not going to have time today. We're already 2 hours 35 minutes into it, but we appreciate everybody for being here. And like I said, you know, there wouldn't be a Finance Unfiltered without you guys. So appreciate it. Molly, you got anything before we start reading out the super chats?
No, but I'll play that video right before we end, John. I mean, you hit the end stream button, you know.
Sure, yeah. You play that before we go. We'll
Yeah.
play that right at the end. We'll play you know, rest in peace to Chief Herbert too. That was a big loss, you know, and that was a great show. If any of you guys haven't watched that show on the 10-4 Tavern. So yeah, we're absolutely sad about the 10-4 Tavern. Someone asked, will they come back? Possibly, you know. Like I said, they're just kind of sunsetting it for now. I don't know if they'll do it again in the future, but they're just right now, they're just real busy in their lives, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work putting these shows together, dudes. So I don't blame anybody, you know. So all right, let's do it. Let's get to the super chats. And sorry to whoever I called out before. Like I said, I'm super tired. I got a split headache too. Staten Guy 321. He says, we have people who want less cops demanding more protection to protest cops. Adam and Kaz made a deal. Cops get CDs for their socks. They openly ignore mental health now. Go somewhere that cares about the law, not here. What do you think?
Less cops demand more protection for protest cops. Adams and Kaz made a deal. Cops get CD. Yeah, there's a lot in that statement there. You know, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think there are people who you don't have a logical argument. You want two opposing. You know, you have two opposing arguments. Okay, you're gonna have to pick a lane. You know, the people who make demands of cops and say we're you know, NYPD is this and that and it's corrupt and it's okay, all right, but here you are saying that we shouldn't have pensions. You know, I mean, like, which lane is it? You know, which lane is it? Do you want better cops or do you want worse cops? Because you're complaining about worse cops right now. You know, so the thing, I would think you'd want the best, most competent people, and but there's a lot in that what in his comment there.
Yeah, Staten Guy says, without Eric, it's like Michael Scott's left the office. I don't know Michael Scott. I don't know. I'm not a big TV watcher. I don't really know.
I think that was the guy played by Steve Carell. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not a big Office fan either, but
I just don't watch like a lot of TV shows. And if I do, I catch them like way after, you know.
Okay.
Mayor Jack Greco says a little cafecito for Eric's recovery. 511, baby. Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it. Pat Donahue, he says, what happens first? 1, DEA president comes back on the podcast. 2, meets with Mullen as promised. 3, makes a statement in an attack on the pensions. 4, allows DEA credit card statements to be reviewed as promised for transparency. I say none of the above.
That's yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with John on this. I don't think he's gonna comment about any of this. In fact, I think he runs out the door. Okay. All right. I think when it actually happens, he might say something about what benefit the union gets while he puts in his papers too and rushes out the door because he doesn't want the smoke coming from that deferment. So
absolutely, I agree. Stephen S says, thanks for all the work you do for us here to be here and learn. Update on Eric. Yeah, I said it earlier. I spoke to Eric 45 minutes ago. I spoke to him yesterday for 45 minutes. He sounded real well. He sounded in good spirits. And like I said, I think he'll be back sooner than later. But obviously, he needs to rest for at least a week or two, But he was good. He was good. We were bullshitting. We were talking about a lot of things. So he was definitely good. I already addressed Cobb, right? Yeah, I was wrong. I apologize. I make mistakes. But my statement still stands. Snake Plissken, thank you, brother. Crazy 10-7. This is a big lolly for Eric. Gonna give him a big lollipop. I don't know. He said he came out of anesthesia and his asshole was killing him. His finger smelled like shit, but he didn't know what happened. No, he didn't say that. I was kidding. Modern Samurai says, great show today. Hope Eric is doing well. Sorry to hear about the 10-4 Tavern. Huge loss. Tough subjects require tough conversations. Really appreciate the hard work you guys put in. God bless you guys and everyone. Appreciate you, brother. Nolan with $100. He says, today I'm seeing John Macari a little differently. I like it. Carry on, John, and I will lay off the vids for a while. Look, I think the videos are funny. I don't care. I think you should, get a better hobby, Nolan. That's all I gotta say. I don't mind them. I don't care. I built up pretty thick skin already by this time. It's told to you. So back when it says COVID exposed all the unvaxxed grandma killers. Did we miss anybody? I feel like we did.
No, I think we hit it all. Hit it all.
Okay. Who else we got? Staten Guy says the only people who don't get hit with the constant details are union reps. Just take the hit, Mo. Gotta go. I have dinner with the CO. It's true. It's true. All right, people. So 600 people this morning. Sorry to cut it a little short, but I have a pounding headache. Like I have to go lay down. I have to go to sleep. So, all right, Mo, you want to wrap it up, brother, and then get the video up?
Yeah. Let's pull it up now. Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us today. We appreciate you spending time with us, and have a great weekend. Stay safe out there if you're working, and yeah, we'll see you next week on Monday. And this is that video. By the way, keep watching us later on. We're gonna repost this entire interview. It's a great interview, guys. And again, you're gonna watch this video because look how much the detective shield meant to Chief Herbert. Okay, he's already been through numerous ranks, past detective, as a supervisor, but yet the detective shield meant so much to him. And this goes back to what we say, why the job, they did the job a real disservice in what they did in not promoting the people that worked hard for it and deserved it. So thanks again, guys. See you next week.
Find us on Unfiltered, people. Marlon, there's nothing playing, bro. What did you say?
Sorry, guys. I thought it was playing on your end, but let me go back again. Damn it.
You got the wrong screen up.
Yeah. Give me a second. I'll go back to the video.
Tell the audience what you told me yesterday.
The proudest rank that I ever achieved was when the day I made detective, and I'm getting emotional now. It was something I wanted to do, from listening to my brothers and all that stuff. So I used to stare at the shield. I'd lay in bed, I'd stare at the shield. I was so happy and so proud, and I still feel that way. The proudest day of my life professionally was the day that I got promoted to detective. I mean, that's really how I started out. It's what I wanted to do, listening to my brother Johnny and his buddies. So, and what's amazing is that I was able to accomplish it, with the help of my partners and everybody else, Timmy Burns and all the people that helped me in like 5 years. And like I said earlier, there were great cops that didn't get promoted for 8, 9 years, So, I was very fortunate and very thankful for the way things all worked out.
So this is also Dennis Schwab, the same partner that you were with that got stabbed, and you went to Valor Day, Medal Day, and got the Medal of Valor too, right?
Yeah, we both were. What happened was after Lieutenant.
That was it, guys. So again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. All right? Okay. Honest Filter, out.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?